live here. It is August 13th, 2026. This is the Ips Deprogram. This is not alt programming. Sorry to disappoint those of you who are still stuck in that internalized Truman Show. I had someone in my comments asking, okay, you describe how it works, we get it, but who's behind it? Can we figure out who it is? And when I hear that, I'm like, well, we're the only ones so far to provide any names and who have any kind of claim to make any kind of a demand or for accountability. And these aren't speculations about secret societies or clubs or based on some kind of preconceived notion about certain ethnicities, which are usually the red herrings that steer the conspiracy theorists. No, we're actually looking at individuals by name, agencies, institutions, entities that have zero plausible deniability. And this is a perspective that really has never been employed in Trutherville. They tend to get lost in the subplots, not recognizing that these alternative storylines are still dependent on the mainstream one being fundamentally true. And we often talk about the rabbit trails, the breadcrumbing that goes on that side of the internet. And one of the most successful psyops that I've seen so far waged against the truther types is the one that prevents them from noticing how much governmental control there is over entertainment. Like, that seems to be what they're hiding. The governmental control over entertainment, the influence. And it's not like they're just paying a few dollars here and there to, buy off some director and throw in some messaging. No, we're talking newsbenders level manipulation of public perception. And it's done with a built-in relationship where government, media, and entertainment collude. Like there's like a capstone level on this pyramid where they all intersect. Top-down influence. What's up, Dean James? Here is your blue wrench. You are a standard mod. Abuse the power responsibly. So anyway, to get back to that person who was, he was saying, basically, hey, we get it. We get it. We understand. Let's figure out who it is. I had to ban him. And it's nothing personal, but I am naming names. We're the only ones who have been. And I can tell that his predisposition is, can we blame this group? And the problem with all these blame games is it puts things into the world stage context. And we're not operating within that context. As in, these various red herrings, however you want to blame things, they're always built on the edifice of lies, is what I call it. So every fake event that never gets corrected, that is just the assumed reality that people have tacitly accepted, these things accrue over time. And when you have a scapegoat, you're like, well, they did all these bad things. And we're saying, well, these bad things are fake. So your scapegoat narrative doesn't really hold any water. And so from our perspective, we can't assign blame to any group when the events themselves are fictions. You see, so that's what I mean by lost in subplots. And I'm engaging quite a lot on X. And there's a lot of people who are, heavily involved in this. It's the new JFK. This is an industry. The Charlie Kirk conspiracy industrial complex. Like, this is as big as the JFK thing, which has been a topic for how many decades now? 6+ decades. And people still talk about it. Like, it's basically a contemporary myth. But it's never meant to be solved. And it's taking advantage of certain built-in biases people have, and also just, I guess, playing into people's will to believe. They want to believe something, or they have a predisposition, and it's played into. So it's like you provide evidence, or you provide, like the Epstein files would be a great example. So it's like, well, these Epstein files are released, and they don't really paint the picture that the conspiracy theorists had expected this whole time. And so for them, the lack of evidence is proof that it's true because it means there's a cover up. Same with the UFOs. The lack of evidence does not deter them, it actually reinforces. And it's just a weird thing about belief systems. Like doomsday cults, when the doomsday doesn't happen, their faith in the event actually paradoxically doubles down. This is the case with the Seventh day Adventists, the Great Disappointment, where their predicted end of the world didn't happen, and so they somehow built a religion about it coming in the future. Same thing with climate change. Although they have adjusted the story to make it more believable. Global warming was intimidating, ocean levels rising was terrifying, and now it's just kind of vague. And I think what they do is they just essentially they make it so vague that every type of weather anomaly can be ascribed to this cause. Your carbon footprint is your original sin. Gaia is a god construct, and they just have this built-in doomsday and flood myth. But it's the left that believe in Gaia and climate change, which blames the right, the public, capitalism, etc. But the right still has their doomsdays, but their doomsdays are a little different. It's either from God or some kind of scenario. Like Tim Pool right now is worrying about the pole shift. And I've noticed whenever there's like a slow psyop week, they start talking about things like this: pole shifts, aliens. In fact, this pole shift topic has been a thing for a while. Let me see if I can find this. What's up, Dinah Southard, Flozix, Suzette Ann, playing Decoded. So we're talking about psyops imitating art. We'll get into that in a minute. So Andrew Tate is in prison, and it has something to do with human trafficking. And I don't know what else. I think it's mostly human trafficking. But anyway, he's a self-professed abuser of women. He describes he teaches people in his courses how to emotionally manipulate people, how to isolate them, and control their money. But anyway, it could all just be an act, which I kind of think it is. I don't believe the Tate brothers are anything but a couple of psyop actors. And he looks too much like Cypher from The Matrix. And he's always talking about fighting the Matrix. So now there's signs out there, and there's a protest movement outside the prison, and they're chanting "Free Top G." Free Top G. Because he's in jail. We've been reading his letters from prison, where he was locked up with the screaming cannibal and the guy that eats paint, and he had no access to the commissary or the exercise room, just there down in the dark, drinking brown water. But somehow he managed to tweet every 20 minutes. How'd you get your phone in there? But he's got these people out there, and there's even a child there, which is just sad. This is grooming. They're grooming a future child trafficker. He's going to learn how to exploit OnlyFans women here. He's going to be an e-pimp. And look at this here. He's like 10 years old. And they're chanting "Free Top G." But it gets worse. They sit around in a circle, and they all do push-ups. And I don't know, these days I just see so many of these videos on X and stuff. I'm starting to think that push-ups and pull-ups are basically the exercise. These exercises are, they're valid and stuff, but the way they do it performatively, it's kind of cringy. And I saw a video where the Tate brothers were hanging out, and they were sitting on these couches while lifting weights. They were all doing a circuit, and it just looked performative. They didn't really know what they were doing. And his dips had no range of motion. But I just found it to be really peculiar that they have a child involved here. And it's all about child trafficking. And these are the people who are against the child traffickers. These are the anti-Epstein people. These were the QAnons. And they've been Pied Piper by literal human traffickers. I mean, it's hilarious to look at Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel in Sound of Freedom, where they were all about saving the children. And then they're saving the children movie star. The character actually is based on Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard is quite literally a human trafficker. Ironically, he traffics the women that he brings with him on his expeditions to stop child trafficking. It's a very deep ruse. And this came up to me. I was thinking about this today too, because there was this conspiracy theory that Tim Ballard is actually Paul Walker, and that Paul Walker faked his death was faked, which I don't find unbelievable. The Paul Walker Tim Ballard connection, it honestly looks legit. And I saw this tweet today. I don't know if I shared it. It's just like Paul Walker at 33 dating a 16-year-old, and he dies shortly after. Probably a good thing for his legacy. But anyway, I'm thinking he does look like a young Tim Ballard. And all these movie stars that are pandering to the right from Angel Productions are all just propagandists. Jim Caviezel was a huge pusher of the Q thing, and he was sitting next to Donald Trump at Bedminster watching that horrible movie. Again, it's called Sound of Freedom. And I had to go see it myself because Angel Productions, I think it's Angel Studios, they produce these horrible movies for the right wing, usually just propaganda, and they will have this thing on their website where you can buy tickets for other people. So you go to the website if you don't have any money, and there's already prepaid tickets. You just get the number and you go to the theater. So that's the idea. And I went to an empty theater, but I'm pretty sure it was reported as being full because all the tickets were purchased. So in other words, they're strategically buying out tickets to make it look like a lot of people actually care. Kind of like Donald Trump Jr. buying a bunch of his own books and then having them put into warehouses to spike his ratings. What's up, Ted Stryker, Dean James? Dean James says Tate was born in D.C., may be the next president. I don't know. I'm not really quite sure if I agree with that. I mean, Andrew Tate is not presidential. He's not a serious person, and I'm just really curious about. I mean, I've had doubts about his character being real ever since he got caught after bragging about his 33 Bugattis, commenting to Greta Thunberg. And so there was this environmentalist perspective she was giving on his cars. And he's like, I got 33 Bugattis. And he had this stack of pizza boxes on the table next to him. And the pizza boxes had the address where he was. And then from there on, he's been under arrest. He's been persecuted by the Matrix for telling too much truth. Like, what truth is he telling? Persecuted by the Matrix. Plain Dakota says, I saw a so-called expose on how Tate had no one outside his prison except for one guy. I'm confused. That was 2 weeks ago. No, there's a big movement out there, and these guys are out there doing push-ups for Andrew Tate. I also looked into his kickboxing record because he's like, I thought, okay, well, I can't talk. This guy's a world-class kickboxer. He's a world champion. And if you look at the background, as far as his fighting record goes, it's just a bunch of like first-time fighters and one guy who had been previously fined for taking a fall for money to artificially bump somebody's record. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the whole thing just seems very fraudulent. Like, I bet he even sucks at chess. I mean, I have no way of knowing. And I've seen him fighting, but he was fighting a bunch of guys that didn't know what they were doing. And it was just like he was bullying. And then when he did get in a fight, he didn't seem to know what he was doing. Remember the guy he had this big fight. I don't remember the guy's name. I mean, I hate that I even keep up with this stuff sometimes. Okay, so to continue here. This is getting interesting, by the way. Because the Great Deconstruction Project is an attempt to systematize the cataloging of Metascript breakdowns and all the information that pertains to fake events. So we're getting the fake events, all of the entertainment material that relates to it, and then the various individuals involved, both in the creative departments, like as in art directors, writers, directors, actors, but also the people in media who do the reporting and the concurrent drills. Because for all the arguments to be made against these patterns we're picking up on, as to say that they're just coincidences, or that the directors are just mirroring life or something, and it's just like we should expect it. it's harder to explain the drills that coincide with the fake events. And our explanation is succinct and it answers more questions than the hypothetical idea that these are just, as they'll say, just mere coincidences. And one of the things I raised here, this is a question I raised, was what is more likely? So here's the question. What is more likely of these two scenarios? So what I provided here are just four. And this is just four. I mean, I could have done many, many more. But I just asked on this question here about these four movies that came out at the same time as the Butler event. Captain America Brave New World. Donald Trump's assassin attempt made Marvel change their trailer. The attempt was eerily similar to the new Captain America Brave New World trailer released the day before. Then you have The Boys team addresses the season 4 finale in light of the assassination attempt, and they explained it away. They changed the season finale. Mickey 17, did it predict the Trump thing? Basically, these directors are all acknowledging these remarkable coincidences. And so those are just 4 of 10 I could have put there. And I'm not even touching the stuff that came before because there are so many. But I'm just saying, out of these ones that happened at the same time or right before or right after, like the ones that really targeted the event, what is more likely? That the event was real and these various directors making movies at different times that all happen to get released at this time just happen to portray the event with specifics. And when I say specifics, I mean Mark Ruffalo with blood on his cheek posing for the cameras. You see, it's like these aren't cherry picked, these are very specific references. Robert De Niro, we talked about this one, talking about immigrants when he shot at. It's just, there's too many to mention here, but what's more likely? That these are all just coincidental, random occurrences that happen to coincide with that event, or the event was pre-planned and fake, and these were coordinated coincidences. In other words, propaganda messaging. And I think at this point, there are so many different, so many examples from different sources, different directors that are so unrelated that I think we can rule out mere coincidence, especially because we routinely predict these occurrences. So what I'm suggesting here is that what we have is conclusive, that this is either a collective psychic phenomenon or a propaganda campaign. A propaganda campaign to establish and reinforce a story that's about to be performed, staged, simulated. So here's another example. This one's pretty stark. I mean, I don't know how you would minimize this one. This is from The Atlantic, and this is again months before, and it shows the very top of Trump's ear clipped. Just in, Trump confirms chunk of his ear is gone. Of course, he regenerated quickly. His ear, I mean, people were like, how did Charlie Kirk's neck, stop the 30-06? And I was like, well, it's made of the same stuff as Trump's ear. Didn't help him, though. Gwilym says, the Swedish programmers, did they ask about media fakery? Yeah, look, they asked about media fakery, and we had a couple of days and a lot of conversations, but they only used the parts that are completely, essentially indefensible. I mean, there is no way that you can make a case for something that you don't have evidence for, and you have no means of getting that evidence. It's kind of a dead end. So the whole topic about the shape of the world, etc., it's like, well, you can agree to disagree. There are very few people who've made any legitimate attempts to do any kind of private expedition, but it's all been just duds. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for them, although there was a group that went to Antarctica, but it was a group of highly questionable people, too biased for the thing to be considered a scientific expedition. Plus, I saw no penguins. So I'm highly doubtful. The way the guy was vaping, pretending it was like cold, I honestly, I think we've just been clowned and trolled by the space agencies. And I think their real objective is controlling the inner space. It's about programming your worldview. regarding the shape of the world and all this. It's not really super relevant to me, but even if it is the size, shape as described, even if everything that we are told is true, it doesn't mean that the so-called video footage we're getting from the ISS is real. I'm saying that the map does not match the terrain, that for some reason we're given an altered version. It doesn't shape aside, what NASA shows us is demonstrably CGI generated, and it's badly done. The whole production is underwhelming, and it makes me wonder, where are the billions of dollars going? You couldn't hire Christopher Nolan. You're using like 2005 era Final Cut Pro. Your green screen glitches are embarrassing. When your guys turn upside down, they got bulging veins in their foreheads, and the actresses are using a lot of hairspray. Like, it's very corny. The ISS needs to go down. It's an embarrassment. And I really did hope that the Chinese space station would look so much better that they would put the ISS out of its misery. I've described it as a jalopy. It's garbage. And it's like, no, Chinese space station comes out and it's basically the Timu version of the ISS. It's like degraded. I'm like, wait, how are they losing quality with regard to their special effects year after year as the special effects in the movies and the consumer level stuff improves vastly beyond what NASA can do? So there's this disparity. And I think that's the main limiting factor as far as how far into space we go. The special effects are pretty much the limiting factor. But anyway, I thought it's been, for a few years now, I've said it's problematic that the ISS's special effects are so outdated. Like, that's a huge problem. But just because I don't believe that the map that they show us is valid doesn't therefore mean I think we live on a pancake, skipping around the sun, like, or floating, or however it's doing it, or vertically accelerating, which is what the Flat Earth Society says. No, I don't think that's the case. I think that the flat Earth topic has, however, brought about a lot of skeptics, a lot of skeptical questions that needed to be, I think, that are worth discussing. But it's not as simple as flat or round. It's just a matter of we don't have enough information, I don't think, to extrapolate very much. Like, I'm not one of those persons who says there's a dome. I've always been against that idea of trying to replace a model you don't believe in with another one that you've come up with. Like, I'm sorry, the better position here is agnostic until you've done some deeper exploration. All right, let me see on your comments here. The Frugal Snowbird says, X22 says Trump, oh, X2, isn't that a QAnon guy? He says Trump went to Syria to get the goods on Hillary. Like, the whole QAnon movement was so focused on Clinton and Hillary and John F. Kennedy Jr. that I think it missed a lot of people for that reason. Like, no, I mean, how many JFK Jr. groupies are there still? And they've all been, plundered by Vincent Fuchsia, who looks like a hobo, and passed himself off as JFK Jr. in disguise. Like, good on him, I guess. Like, he's either taking the groupies from a dead guy that people are tricked into thinking is still alive, or he's stealing groupies from a guy who's undercover and hiding. And he can't. But that's actually what we saw. It's actually kind of sick if you think about it. It's a cult. And a lot of cults do that. Like Jim Jones and stuff. If you read about these cults, the cult leaders, they all behave like basically entitled, more or less, rock star types. Let's see here. Plane Dakota says it's an infinite plane. I don't know. In a sense, it is. Like, that's not like an extraordinary claim necessarily, because the universe is flat. I mean, the solar system's flat, sure, but the universe itself is considered to be flat. Like, what, you think it's a ball? Like a cube? Yeah, the universe is a big spherical space. What's outside of that? No, the universe is considered to be flat for all intents and purposes. And it could be the case. I considered that maybe we're just on the bottom of it. But if it's flat, and if it's considered to be infinite and expanding from the Big Bang, then yeah, technically we do live on an infinite plane. We're flat universes. And when you look at it from that perspective, we're all flat universes. And that includes all the aliens that we'll never meet from exoplanets that we couldn't possibly reach in our lifespans. So everyone in the universe, whatever species, we're all flat universes together. So from that sense, the ball earther versus flat earther debate seems rather trivial. Critifus says, do you take painting requests? No, I don't do private commissions. I used to do that for a long time. For several years, I did private commissions, but I stopped. And maybe I'm superstitious, but I think my artwork has been cursed. So fair warning if you own any of my art. But it just seems like my private commissions get lost in the mail, like more than anything else. The last one disappeared for 6 months and I located it. But there's something up. And strange stuff happens when I try to do it. So no, I do not ever take private commissions. The last one, actually, I'm attempting to get it done this month. I started it last year and it was lost. And then he finally found it, wanted some touch-ups. And so it just got pushed back and pushed back, but I'm trying to wrap it up this month. And I have declared that to be the last private commission I ever do. Until I die. Let's see. And by the way, just take you said here, you want a painting of the Sex Pistols with the penguins or something like that? Yeah. Or the penguin? Are you talking about from Batman? Anyway, take that and throw it into AI. Like that, it'll give you the image. Like you don't have to pay artists now. You just go to ChatGPT. Diana says, or existing on the back of Atlas or a huge Indian elephant. Well, technically, Atlas was holding up the sky, and then later depictions had him with the sphere on his back. And then I've seen some examples where he's holding a sphere, but it's like the celestial sphere. So it's kind of confusing. I have to look back at that one. But another thing too. Hold on a second. Okay, let's just get back on track here. Someone is asking about private commission paintings. And you know, I'm actually not really interested in it. It's fun. I like doing the art and stuff, but it's not super profitable. And really what's changed is the UPS or USPS, because I used to ship my smaller paintings. You've probably seen these, like postcard sized and smaller, for under $1 each. And so it was easy to make 100% profit on each one. But that's changed in the last few years. So it's like these are all parcels now. So it's like, wait, it's going to be minimum $5 to $10 to ship everything. And I've been losing money since 2018 on art, but I keep doing it anyway, because if I break even, I look at it as advertising and practice. So it's not a huge problem, but it's just not super profitable. It's not like a business. Rather, it's not a viable business. Although I did well at the flea markets in May and up until June, but it's been way too hot. It's like 100 plus degrees. So I might go back to doing that. We'll see. Now, I would make one exception as far as private commissions. I would paint something if I was given something to copy directly, I suppose, like if it was AI generated. It'd be on a case-to-case basis. But as far as coming up with ideas of my own, that's the part where I hit a wall. It's like writer's block. I got painter's block. Okay, let's see here. This is another example here. We talked about this the other day. This is a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph of somebody whispering, "America's under attack," into Bush's ear as he looks to his right. Same photographer. And here he is in Butler, and Trump is looking to the right, and the bullets whizzing by his ear. And so the idea of America's under attack, well, the way this event was sold is the left, which is attacking America from the mainstream Republican perspective, was attacking Trump. And like Ryan Routh, this guy, and then this other guy on the fourth, which we predicted. So the narrative is that these are, and you know what's interesting too? We came across this last night. The Captain America Brave New World trailer that had the president getting shot at the podium, the one that came out on 7/12. Harrison Ford is the president in that one. And right before that, and this is what we were looking at in Discord. I'll see if I can find that piece. Right before that, he was in a Tom Clancy. Here it is. Tom Clancy is a major metascripter as well when it comes to authors. Okay, this is intriguing. So that they had this plot, the Harrison Ford connection. He was Ross. So there's like a meta script here that connects the previous movie that Harrison Ford was in to the Marvel comics where he's actually shot. So it's another layer. So basically, Captain America has a Tom Clancy meta script. This is the AI breakdown. Another layer that makes this interesting for your database. They chose Harrison Ford as President Ross and discussed Ford's significance. He was the actor who helped the early conception of America through clear and present danger. And there's your Clancy. In which Ford plays Jack Ryan, a corrupt confronting a corrupt president. And then later directed Ford as the president. So anyway, you have this idea of somebody approaching a corrupt president. Tom Clancy. And there was something else here. Of course, the Harrison Ford birthday, 7/13, kind of fits a pre-existing pattern. And you could throw in Ford Theater. No coincidences. And these birthday things are significant. Again, we mentioned, so Harrison Ford, 7/13. Mark Ruffalo, 11/22. So we're talking about their birthdays and the association with the president getting shot and how these birthdays seem encoded into their characters. And the only explanation for this is that it's part of their world stage role. These roles are essentially like, imagine being a lifetime crisis actor. Like your gig never actually ends. It's analogous to being almost like a deep cover spy, an agent. You're living a dual life. You're a fake person. And that's the kind of person Charlie was. Kirk. I saw someone on Twitter talking about how, and I retweeted him. He said Charlie Kirk was CGI. Let me pull that quote up here in a minute. Oh, look, here's Paul Walker, 33, dating Jasmine Gosnell, who was 16. They stayed together for 7 years until his death in 2013. Did he die? Or did he fake die and return as human trafficker Tim Bellard? I don't know. Let's continue here. My Ko-Fi says that I do private art. Yeah, I'm going to have to shut that off. I really, it's really, like I said, it's cursed. I don't know how else to explain it. Tim Pool says it's true. We're way overdue for a major pole shift. It will be a doomsday scenario for Earth. Nobody knows when. Nobody knows what will happen. So a lot of people are holding out hope that there would be a 7-second or so loss of gravity that was supposed to occur during the eclipse, and it didn't happen, unfortunately. And I guess the doomsday fever hasn't passed. And here's Tim Pool, who even wears his signature beanie when he's dressed in a suit, in a tuxedo, and at the White House. I don't know what to make of it. I don't. I understand branding and trademark, but I don't know. Maybe it's like, like some kind of a comfort blanket thing. Suzette Ann says, I think the final experiment is fake. They did not go to Antarctica. I'm with Mark Sargent on this one. He's like, Jaron goes to Antarctica and they show him the suitcase. They make an offer that they paid him off. Because he didn't just say, okay, guys, I can't say the earth was flat because I experienced a 24-hour sun. No, he's like, I'm an anti-flat earther. And like I don't understand that position. And actually, I kind of do. I understand why he takes that position because he's always been a part of this controlled dialectic here. But I don't think of Jeranism or Witsit Gets It or any of these people as credible anyway because they don't know news is fake. They don't know about fake news. They think maybe that one event had an actor, but they're not there. So their opinion on the bigger picture is just not really super valid. But I do agree with you. I think they faked it. I don't think you can take weed, joints, and vapes to Antarctica. I saw the t-shirt shop, which was sort of convincing. Like you go to Antarctica and there's a shop there, you can buy t-shirts that have like Antarctica on it. Like that's like something the CIA would do. Like they'd printed it up really quick and threw it together. It's like, no, I didn't see any penguins. So that's where I'm at. They were probably at a hangar, some SpaceX hangar, and they were surrounded by big screens. And the reason I say so is when they get off the plane, they're walking around, and Jeranism's like, look, that mountain over there, it's 14 miles away, but it feels like I can just reach out and touch it. And he laughs. Then he points to a glacier. He's like, that's 5 miles away, and it feels like I could just touch that. Like, who says that? I've never done that. I've never had a friend say, hey, that building's about 20 miles away, but I feel like I could just reach out and touch it. Like, I'm sorry, but that's like something you wouldn't say unless you were really, really high on something. I imagine that could explain it. But no, I think the most likely explanation is he was looking at a screen and he was experiencing a jolt of duper's delight. They even had, I guess it was like a drone where the drone detects when it's about to hit something. So they sent the drone out and it went to a certain distance where the horizon line was, and suddenly it starts beeping. It's like, oh, it got too close to the screen. So that's kind of where I'm at with the final experiment. Not to mention, it was all organized and financed by some really devilish little character. Was it? Is it Pastor Fuddy? And the guy's just like, I don't know. He's like 33 and has like millions of dollars, and he's like really mad at the flat Earth. I don't know. I just don't buy it. None of it adds up. Nothing. Like honestly, all those people who went are highly questionable. They're all I think part of this clique of essentially people who've made deals because they've done terrible things and they have no choice, and so now they're doing propaganda in alt media for the government. We've seen many examples of this. Some of them are being handled by someone who worked for uh, Denver police departments. He did some kind of intelligence work for them, but they were handlers, and I think a lot of these people were basically employed to gatekeep certain parts of the internet. So I think these are a bunch of gatekeepers. Like I'm not saying McToon is a criminal, but he's just very obsessed at a minimum. I'm not going to speculate, but like it's not a secret that you have about 15 or 20 mugshots between the people who went. Okay, let's see here. Plain Dakota says the whole concept of seeing the sun means shape is nonsense. But is it? I mean, I've heard this argument where people say, well, you can't say anything about the shape of the earth by looking at the sky. I'm not sure if I understand that reasoning because the flat earth concept is that the earth is stationary and everything above is tiny. So the sun isn't massive. The planets aren't big. They're actually, I mean, the idea here is that these things would be going in a circuit, that it's not an orbit. So orbit's not a thing. It's a circuit. It's much different. They're moving in a circle. And by what mechanism? I don't know. As far as the size of the sun and all this stuff, the distance, we're not talking about 93 million miles away because people will say, well, if the earth was flat, it would be daylight and nighttime everywhere all at once. Well, not really. Well, the idea here is that the sun isn't so far away, it's lighting the whole thing, but it's actually so close that it's only spotlighting regions. Oh, Will Duffy. Thank you. Pastor Will Duffy. Job says, shouldn't they be able to provide a video of several months of constant daylight, not just 24 hours? Look, I'm with you on that. Like, if something is true, it should be very easy to demonstrate it. They're really, like, why are we still questioning it anyway? Like, you don't think they could just laid this to rest a long time ago if it was that simple? Now, here's what I want to know. I want to know if John D. and Gerardus Mercator were serious when they were talking about there being a 33-mile circumference magnetic rock at the center of the North Pole. Like, that's a big deal. And I want to know why we wouldn't trust that information. It's like, well, we have the Mercator projection. We understand, oh, this is pretty much the world. The guy also says that there is this feature of the North Pole. We can't believe that. Are you sure? How can you say he's a source here? We can source this guy's map, his cartography, but we can't acknowledge that black rock. And it's also conspicuous that he's BFFs with 007, John D. himself, who's basically like the godfather of Western occultism, like a tier above Aleister Crowley, like this guy's source. And I say occult, I mean a practitioner of necromancy, angels, angel magic, that kind of stuff. And that wasn't all. They were into some strange things. But John D. was, for some reason, an advisor to Mercator on these English voyages of exploration. And in their correspondences, they talked about a black rock in the center of the world. So I'm like, I would go check it out. I would rather go there than go to Antarctica. Like, what are you going to see there? Like, let's. Now, the only thing about Antarctica is if the world is not a ball, then Antarctica is actually a region surrounding the continents. That doesn't mean the Antarctica you've seen on the globe doesn't exist. It just means that would only be one section. So we actually have Antarcticas, plural. I mean, if true, it's a clever deception. I'm saying I don't know. I'm somewhat shape agnostic. And I think what is more pertinent here is not necessarily the shape, but rather determining, is it actually static? Or are we in a participatory universe? And I'm also highly interested in the question, can you have a model of the world you consider to be complete if it doesn't include human perception as a force, as a factor in the materialization process? Because if we are in any level co-creative, in any level interacting with the universe at the point where we influence outcomes, then you can't say it's static. It means it's coming into being every single moment. It's kind of an inverted look at the Big Bang instead of being like a distant event from the past and it explains everything and everything's slowing to a halt at some point. It's more like, no, the Big Bang is in the future and it's a constant one. Like creation is constantly, and it's like constantly order out of chaos. So it's constantly condensing into order. And if we are indeed in such a place where, as far as like animals wouldn't be a part of this, but if we are in fact beings with such agency that we have influence over events, if that is the case, if we have what you call philosophical idealism as a better model than the mechanistic one, then yeah, that would be the easiest way for me anyway, to make sense of synchronicity, intuition, precognition, and such. What I'm saying is, I don't think any model is complete if it doesn't include human perception. If we aren't consciously tapped into the universe through some kind of, the best way to explain it is instead of a dualism of like spirit trapped in body, body is just the lowest or the densest level of spirit. And at the level of spirit, which is synonymous with mind. So is matter a substrate of mind? Did mind emerge from matter? Is it a byproduct of the brain? Or is matter just the end of a process? Panpsychism. Panpsychism is what I would probably say I adhere to. But anyway, that is a more important question to me than shape or size of the Earth, missing continents, or whatever. Himself says, can you speak on the DC sniper situation? Which DC sniper? The guy with this who had his son with him, and they were like shooting at cars and stuff. I did look into that one, if that's the one you're referring to, because there was talk of there was like at the time, MK Ultra and stuff, mind control, and he had been leaving clues at the sites. And on Time Magazine, they put the death card, the tarot card for death, because he had left it at one of the locations he was shooting from. Plane says, I see the circular light on my ceiling, therefore my floor is a circle. Well, okay, that's one. People will say, how can the Earth be flat if all the other planets are spheres? If everything in space is spherical? And the problem with that response that they give is the Earth isn't a perfect sphere. So if you look at all of the planets as, we get, images of them, or you look through your telescope, what do you see? Well, they're all perfectly spherical, but the Earth is an oblate spheroid. So the Earth isn't actually a perfect sphere. And so I'm like, show me the oblate spheroid in space. Like, point my telescope toward an oblate spheroid, please. I want to see one of those things just free floating out there. Are we an anomaly? Himself says it never happened to him. I don't think it did. I think they were running so many drills, like simulations, because that's what they do. And the reason why you hear so much simulation theory talk from conspiracy theorists is that simulations have been used to put us into an internal simulation, essentially. They have been using simulated events to put us into a fake timeline, a prefabricated history. And when they get people to think that we're in a simulation, like a computer simulation, literally, I think it makes the question of fake news seem less relevant. It's like, reality's fake. You've cracked the matrix. I'm like, no, I don't think that's true. Like, I'm not saying that when I say panpsychism, it doesn't mean that nothing's real. I do not believe in this simulation theory stuff, or I don't say that everything's fake. Not in the news and not in reality. Like, I'm strictly an objectivist. But I think objectivism has this, most objectivists have this built-in this predisposition to dismiss anything they consider to be mystical or magical or anything like that. But objectivism isn't meant to reject evidence. So I'm just referencing evidence, experience, empirical observations. Is there enough there to speculate that maybe we don't have a complete science of the mind that adequately explains not just what we are, but what our uh, place in the universe actually is? Are we over-evolved apes with big egos, just basically meat suits, overestimating our importance, and we're not the center of anything, we're just a speck of dust in this vast expanding nothingness? Or is the universe human-centric? And that's kind of where I'm at. I think it's actually organized around sentience. The thing is, I'm not a religious person and I'm not a cultist. And so it's like, yeah, I could be wrong. And I fully agree with the idea that there is no hard problem of consciousness, that science can adequately explain everything about human existence without having to make reference to a soul or a spirit. So when they say you're just an ape and you're on a dying planet in a dying solar system and everything's going to collapse on itself, nothing will exist, and ultimately your species is simply a lucky lottery winner in the uh, survival of the fittest. And this like lottery, basically, we are lucky. We are lucky. We are more or less random, and that our emergence here is a blip on a radar. So like you can make that case. You could say that we don't have souls or spirits, and we don't need them. It's not necessary. You could explain everything about your consciousness by referencing just the brain. However, that's measuring from the outside. It doesn't take into account the internal experience. And that's why I diverge from the explanation, but I recognize its validity because science does, in fact, measure what is, but what it doesn't measure is what is coming into being or what is transcendent. It doesn't touch that area. And so what I'm getting at here is that my opinions are informed by something that is outside the range of perception. If we're talking about precognition in particular, or even synchronicity to a degree, but intuitive knowledge, stuff that you have no physical basis for having received this information. When it comes to stuff like that, I think you do get into the idea of extrasensory perception for all intents and purposes, however you want to define it. Like I said, I consider the term spirit and mind to be synonymous for the purposes of these discussions. But I would be totally fine if evidence were presented to me that contradicted all of the things I've come to think. It's always nice when you're wrong about something fundamentally and somebody points it out because it frees up a bunch of bandwidth, a bunch of wasted attention. And attention is considered, it's like a resource they're trying to harvest. It's the attention economy. And if I can, if anything, what this does, what skepticism does, in fact, is it relieves the burden of paying attention to so many things that don't matter. We're very quick at discerning real from fake here. We don't get caught up in the subplots. I mean, imagine being afraid of 5G towers and cirrus clouds. Just the basic truth or fears, where every nice day you go outside is marred by what you believe to be poison, weather-altering contaminants being injected into your blue skies that will blot out the sun at some point. Like, I'm glad I don't live in doomsday. I'm glad I'm not like Tim Pool, speculating about when the poles are going to shift, when the globe's going to flip. It's like, we don't know when, we don't know how, but it's going to be the end of the world. It's a slow psyop week for someone to be talking about the earth flipping over. Let me play a few seconds. We'll see how much we can tolerate.
In this article, I think it was from like science.com, whatever, they said most researchers believe that we are not going to see the poles flip, despite the fact that we've seen the North Pole move quite a bit in the past few years, and we are overdue based on the average amount of time of a pole flip. Is that true?
We're overdue for a pole flip, and the North Pole is drifting. The Black Rock. Yeah, but I do want to check out the Black Rock if anyone is interested. I wouldn't want to personally go, but I'd get behind an expedition, I suppose. Like, the North Pole could be a massive hoax as far as what they show us. I'm thinking I'm going to trust Mercator and John D. that there's some kind of thing that we need to look at. Way more interesting than the South Pole. Okay, moving on here. I think it's conclusive, just to put an end on the PSYOPs imitate art thing. The number of directors involved in predictive and concurrent content for Butler alone proves that it couldn't possibly be a coincidence. Like, one director, one movie, sure. But we're getting into like dozens when it comes to the, in total. And many of these are referenced by the media itself, so it's not like we're cherry picking, like they're even noticing it. But there are too many people doing this for it to be a mere coincidence. So you're stuck with collective psychic phenomenon or a coordinated propaganda effort, which is what we generally see. 4 video games predicted September 11th. It's a pretty good clip there. And yeah, these are other examples. People look at this stuff all the time, and it's like, yeah, well, 9/11 is not the only one. We find these things, and again, we're talking like nuanced connections. One of the better ones recently, I think, is the Weapons movie with the 2:17 a.m. The children all run out into the streets because the witch summons them, and it's about these kids who disappear from a classroom, except for one kid whose initials are AL, like Adam Lanza. But it's just a metaphor. It's a school shooting analogy, is what the movie actually is, or it's an allegory. And it's basically where the Wicked Witch woman is the way that the children conceptualize a mass shooter. But it's followed by the Annunciation school shooting, where you have a satanic Nazi, red-headed, uh, trans shooter. So you have this person who's presented that has many overlapping characteristics with Gladys the witch. The red hair, the the witchy elements are key here, but that person shoots 2 wound 17. So the 217 is immediately in the story. So I'm like, okay, these are some pretty strong correlations because the movie's reference of 217 was put there to reference a vote to ban assault weapons that failed. So it was about the failure of the gun control agenda to save the children. So they made it pretty ham-fisted with the 217 and the image of a gun in the sky and stuff. But then immediately after, children are shot in a school. It's a Christian school, and by a redheaded witch, just like the movie 217. And the parents running barefoot down the street look just like the movie poster from Weapons. So people are like happy to talk about 9/11 stuff, like, oh, look, Hulk Hogan said this 40 years ago. I'm like, no, we're looking at this stuff happening like all the time. And I think a lot of people fall short of the truth. They don't reach the big picture view we have, and they're still stuck in a loop where every single time one of these coincidences points out, their minds are blown. Like, oh, my mind is blown. That just happened in a movie. And every time they walk away from it, like they had some kind of encounter with something mysterious, like something inexplicable. Like this is basically paranormal. It's like Mandela effects. Like I think Mandela effects probably hit really hard for the first people who fell into that thing. But the explanations are pretty well understood. And the whole field is so contaminated with user generated alternate versions of things that it's just too contaminated to make the case now. But when people act like spotting a connection between a Hollywood movie and a major psyop is some kind of like revelation, I'm just thinking like these are actually mundane. Like it's not mind blowing, it's predictable. And the reason why people aren't arriving at that is they're only looking at like 9/11, like it's an anomaly. They're not looking at the systemic nature of it. Like I said, it's structural. And this is what is great about the deconstruction project is we are going into the weeds here, but we're showing that not only is it repetitive, it's a built-in feature, but you'll see consistently the same directors and writers are contributing to these different events. So we can look at Harrison Ford now as one of the actors who'd be considered a meta scripter. Actually, I've noticed Harrison Ford is known for like crashing his private plane. Like he's always crash landing. And I think these might be a PR stunt type of event, like staging plane crashes to kind of make you think of Han Solo. Like I think that's what it is. I don't think he's literally crashing his planes everywhere. Nate says, how many times in scientific studies that the pole switch places doesn't happen? Yeah, someone had mentioned in here they were talking about pole shifting like 30 years ago. I've heard that before as well. The flood myth of they used to use with climate change. Uh, that was kind of big in New Age circles. There was this group called Earth Changes, and they said that they moved to New Mexico because they were convinced that where they came from was going to be flooded. For some reason, people are very susceptible to a lot of these things, and I think that's why the state appropriated it. The state appropriated Noah's flood because it is such an effective myth. It's a fear. It's like a God construct they insert. Like so, the fear of God is very good for controlling people, and the idea that well, your wickedness is going to trigger this response, so you have to mitigate your behaviors. Other people will correct your behaviors because they don't want this deity to take revenge. It's good for coercing control, managing people through guilt, make sacrifices to appease the angry God. Carbon cap and tax, cap and trade. Tax the air that you breathe. You got to mitigate your carbon footprint. And the other guys are the sinners. They're the ones who are going to trigger the flood. So we have to attack them for contributing to the. And we see this all the time. I was listening to a podcast, it was like the Daily Beast or something, around the time of the Maui fires. And one of the hosts opens up and she says, I just want to apologize on behalf of America for our role in the fires over there in Maui because we contribute so much to CO2 to the climate change. So anyway, like their website for NBC News, they have climate change confessions. You can confess your climate sins. But I'm saying that the state has appropriated the old flood myth because it's so effective. And very little about it's changed. It's the same thing. They even took the name Noah. The agency that tells you when there's going to be a flood is called Noah. Its symbol is the dove, which is Noah's symbol. But they appropriated it because it works, because even though they make everything look like it's science-y, it is in fact highly superstitious, and it's actually based on the older paradigm, but it's been syncretically blended with science fiction. So Reap says, you are the actor, you are in the movie till we stop serving the creature more than the creator. You are the actor. I kind of hear you on that. I think there is something very much like the whole Gnostic concept of the demiurge and the archons, where the entity that built the world in this mythical view doesn't have any sort of creative capacity to make souls. It just solely works in matter, so it entraps souls, like matrix batteries. So it's a false god that exists only as long as the entrapped souls continue to feed it. And it is fed through their interactions with the rulers called the archons, who extract their soul energy through fear primarily, as well as any other extreme emotional state. So in other words, they turn you into loosh cows to keep the system going. And I think it is very much true that our attention is what powers this thing. But good luck getting people to unplug. The Gnostic storylines about this entrapped soul thing does entail the idea that not everybody is meant to escape. A lot of people are actually, for all intents and purposes, permanently and comfortably plugged into the loosh farm. I'm not. I haven't really given any in a long time. I really have not had any kind of significant emotion in response to anything on the news. I mean, I've been around normies who are kind of there whining about Iran and war and stuff and nukes and having actual anxiety. And, I probably look like a psychopath because I'm just like so dismissive of it. Like, I really couldn't care less. I'm like, how can you be concerned about that? Like, I don't feed it. I'm not feeding the Matrix. You know who is? Every single person in Trutherville. Every person with an anti-position who's out there publicly advocating, pro or anti. If you're advocating for some media-driven cause or psyop, you're feeding the beast. You're serving it. What's up, Howard Boyd? Thanks for joining. Slaves Live Under the Sun says, yes, plot line in 6 Days, 7 Nights. Is that the one with a... So 6 Days, 7 Nights, is that a pole shift one? Well, there is this thing called climate fiction. And the first example of climate fiction was a book called The Coming Global Superstorm by Art Bell and Whitney Strieber. Whitney Strieber's a guy who was abducted by aliens and got probed. And he wrote about it in a book called Communion. And I like his work. He's a great paranormal storyteller. I've read a number of his books, actually. 2012 is interesting. It's called War for Souls. All kinds of references to the Dog Star and Robert Anton Wilson. But the idea in that one is that the flying saucers come down and they start harvesting everybody's souls. And so everyone's walking around like zombies. And it gets kind of weird in that one because people's consciousness are being trapped in these vials and being plugged in to actually power machinery. It's very bizarre. But anyway, he and Art Bell wrote this book, which is considered to be like foundational in climate. You call it a, it's like climate. I guess it's a science fiction genre, climate fiction, where they start providing a lot of programming in people to accept the idea that Mother Nature is going to hit back and that we deserve it. And I used to believe that. I used to believe that we were essentially triggering Mother Nature, and whatever she does, we deserve it. I thought we probably deserve a good smack from a planet killer asteroid because they do program quite a bit of misanthropy. I think the idea of punishing your carbon output is to get you used to the idea that every breath you take in and exhale is essentially offensive to their new God construct. Every step you take, they got to rate limit us on everything. Like, do you remember when, like, actually, I've heard this from a number of people. Like, I want to start talking about AI, the potential use cases, how I've used it in my art and in the podcast. Like, I think it's a worthwhile conversation, but it seems like every time I bring up AI, somebody's going to say, yeah, it takes a lot of water to do that. Like, you're wasting the water. I get guilt tripped when I talk about using AI to not edit my books, but to provide reviews or to basically, I use it as a researcher and an editor. Not to mention, I use it for transcript analysis, infographics. I find a lot of uses for it. And I'm working right now with AI agents to do essentially like autonomous auto hoaxing with AI agents, and then who will then produce a number of press releases throughout the day, more or less, for us to peruse in our Discord server. So basically automating our intel gathering by bots that have a knowledge base and a frame of reference that allows them to, like I said, auto hoax the media. But every time I talk about this stuff, somebody gets mad because I'm wasting all the water. Like, look at this AI image I did. Oh, you just hurt the earth. Like, what an unnecessary guilt trip. And that's what I see. I think largely a lot of the green stuff is guilt trip. It's guilt tripping you for, consuming things, for existing, for breathing. Slaves Live Under the Sun says Harrison Ford movie has plane crashes. Dinah Southard says probably a cartoon mind virus from early childhood. When I was in film studies, I had been really interested in animation. And I had a friend whose parents worked in animation. In fact, they had an Emmy for their writing in shows like Captain Planet and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Muppet Babies. And we had coffee one day, and they explained how they were, in fact, putting a lot of messages for the children consciously, influencing them to see CEOs as evil villains who like to dump toxic waste into the rivers. Like, that's just like a staple of all these shows. Like, CEOs exist to pollute the world, and like even the guy in The Simpsons, Montgomery Burns, like he's got the toxic waste. But anyway, it's all programming, guilt tripping, and I think they need that. They need there to be the equivalent of sin for the godless. So for the atheists, space is their heaven, aliens are their angels, and the carbon footprint is a replacement for the original sin. And your relationship with Gaia now has to be considered. And so recycling, in a way, could be looked at as confession, as the expiation of guilt. Like, these are all my actions as a consumer that need to be judged by Gaia. And these ones I can recycle, so I made good choices. And then you get rewarded for your recycling. So there's always this relationship with Gaia, like, that is kind of built in, where you feel bad for guzzling so much dino juice, so you want to get a more economical car. You see how it's all just basically a replacement faith? And I think they even went further, because original sin is one thing, and it's just like what we are, because we're fallen beings. And your entire life, you're basically offending Gaia. But there's also another element to sin, and I think what they have done here is it's the idea that they're saved and unsaved. And it's all based on your relationship to the church that provides the salvation or the path, the sacraments, etc. And they've reintroduced that as well. And I think that's what you see with the whole virus and the vax thing, where it's dividing people into the saved and unsaved based on whether or not they take the injectable Eucharist at the behest of the secular priesthood, the media church's priesthood. And I think they also designed that whole operation to ensure that only half, that it would be pretty split. Like, I don't think they want unanimous compliance. They have to have an anti. But essentially, what you're looking at here is a new iteration of an older paradigm. And it's pretty much unanimous. I mean, every element, like I would even say that the space program is primarily pageantry to sell you on this science fiction version of heaven. In fact, it's very clear. We were talking about this last Easter because at that time you had the Artemis mission, and simultaneous to that you had Project Hail Mary, and of course Ryan Gosling as a guy named Grace, saving the planet from the dying sun. So it's all very much coded with the same symbolism as Easter and the pagan rites of Ishtar, and the goddess, the Queen of Heaven, and Mary, Queen of Heaven, and Project Hail Mary going to deep space to help save the world because the sun's going to die, and they resurrect the sun. So this overlapping of these NASA rituals with the holidays, like in that particular instance, Easter, it's intentional. I would argue that that is intentional. And we've discussed often that the symbol of the obelisk is essentially what you're looking at with the rocket itself. And that's why you have all these names and these the nomenclature around these various launches are always code for these deities, not insignificant. In fact, I should probably release that documentary again. Someone had said I should update it. Cult of the Obelisk. And it primarily deals with the space program's ulterior function as, again, pageantry, religious pageantry. And I think it gets even deeper when you get into Mach 33 to escape the world, escape velocity. The escape velocity is 33 times the speed of sound. And I think that is related to the idea of space travel as allegory for higher consciousness. So even though it's likely fraudulent and they're providing a false map and a false representation, I think behind that there is the esoteric side, where the exoteric is what the public is shown, and then the initiates are given a different interpretation. And insofar as it's representing this certain body of symbols and these same things, I would call it a mystery school. I don't think you have to look much further than what they show you to arrive at that. The Mach 33 is what really seals it for me, but that's just scratching the surface here. Okay, let me go ahead and hand out a few wrenches. If you're in chat, say hello. I'm passing out. Well, they're blue shields now, which I think they changed because of us. By the way, I've been integrating all the various podcasts in the 24/7 live stream. So if you go to ips.monster, you can get all those links updated. And if you're on Patreon, the archives are going to be posting pretty much nightly. It's all just done automatically. I've been finding ways to automate my process to make it, feasible to be more consistent, because these things are time consuming. But I was like, why am I uploading to like 5 different platforms when I can probably just use make.com or some other site? And okay, here we are, live from Realville. Now, I think we're having a lot of issues of some kind because I keep seeing the numbers drop off like crazy. Like, are we getting some glitching here? Strange. This is the philosophy of media deconstruction, the Metascript PSYOP Entertainment Complex. This is an infographic that I made with Notebook LLM. So what I do is I upload the video, I take the transcript and I give it to Notebook. And then I tell Notebook to create an infographic based on the themes that we're discussing. And the reason why I'm promulgating this and I'm putting all these infographics and these courses out there is because we don't want to have to fight to um, get our message out clearly without it being distorted. Because it's very easy to be misrepresented if you don't control search results. But I don't think search results are so important anymore. I think what's more important is what is Google AI? What is ChatBTC? What is Grok going to say? And the more I put out there, the more sources it draws from, the better its definitions get. So I'm finding that AI is actually accurately representing what we were discussing. Gorank says, are they honoring a mystery teaching that has survived the death of paganism? My guess is yes. Yes. So I have in fact, I have the manuscript here. I brought it in because I wanted to review it. The Secret Religion of the Elite, which corresponds to the Cult of the Obelisk. I put this together, and you can't make these, like, it's hard to make, these claims like we were created by aliens this many millions of years ago, or even trusting the claims of religions and their timelines. So it's all super arbitrary. But if you look at the nomenclature and the symbolism, as though you were an anthropologist, I think you could arrive at something conclusive about the purpose and intent. And I would suggest that the old world order is the new world order. It's just the same thing. It's just being syncretically blended with science fiction. But there does seem to be some commonality here that has to do with the uh, observation of the cycles of nature. And so they say sun worship, and that's not 100% accurate, but yeah, you do in fact have the primary holidays based upon the sun, the equinoxes, solstices, and the halfway in betweens. You get the 8 Sabbats. But yeah, whatever is behind it, sure. Like I don't really get into the religious stuff, but I think a good example of how the system works is to look at Serapis, who's a god made of three other gods combined because they were merging disparate regions. So it's like, let's take your god, let's take your Zeus, combine him with Osiris, and add some Dionysus for the image, and then now we all worship one. So this idea of consolidating belief systems is what I think we've seen, this constant evolution of appropriating and absorbing. And the idea that the Catholic Church absorbed a bunch of pagan traditions is generally what people will say. I would say it's just a continuation of. I don't think they absorbed, but my point of it is what media is doing today, and this is like media at large, the worldview building aspect of media, is not just imitating the religious myths and updating them, but I think it's amalgamating it into a singular system. So they're giving us a one worldview that synchronizes all of us. So they're essentially like it's like Frankenstein's monster, like Serapis, but instead of just three gods, it's everything. And like that's what I'm saying. Aliens are in fact a syncretic blend of angels with some science fiction elements. And why would they do this? Well, because you have two opposing worldviews. One of them is fundamentally reductionist, atheistic, and the other one is traditional, and it believes in a creator. But they need everybody superstitious. They need everybody to have some common framework. And so I don't think that they want this other group to just completely go into skepticism. No, they actually have them with an alt belief system. Slaves Under the Sun says, I'll have to listen back. I arrived at the end. Oh, yeah, I'll be looking into the Harrison Ford thing. Again, he was born on 7/13, the day that Trump was shot. He was in a trailer the day before as the president getting shot. He becomes Red MAGA. The Red Hulk. And I think that's interesting too. So he becomes the Red Hulk. Meanwhile, simultaneously, Mickey 17, Mark Ruffalo, who also has a significant birthday, 11/22, is the Green Hulk. There's some green red that has some code with the right. So like President Trump going full blown MAGA extreme is like the Red Hulk, and it's all red coded. But the left has a lot of green coding into it, like the Green Witch who confronts the Wizard of Oz, or the green haired Joker who represents the poor and the oppressed in the class warfare framework. The Green Beret associated with the shooter Luigi Mangione, class warfare, class warrior shoots a rich guy. The Luigi game was brought up because it came out at the same time and it was called Luigi's Mansion. So people are like, oh, Luigi's Mansion, Luigi Mangione. And Luigi's Mansion is haunted, so he has a ghost gun. And what did Luigi Mangione use to kill the CEO? A ghost gun. Outside of a 47-story hotel where Trump announced his uh, candidacy. So you have a lot of Trump code in this whole thing. Like Mangione being caught in a McDonald's, I think might relate to Trump the day before serving fries at a McDonald's. Like there's something consistent in the story. But after the Mangione shooting, a CEO, well, anti-CEO movement started the whole No Kings protest. So a lot of people were like on Team Luigi. I mean, he has his groupies, the Mangionettes. But at that time, a literal Green Beret, former Green Beret army, loads up a Cybertruck with fireworks and crashes into Trump Tower. So you have this symbolic attack against Trump and Musk. And this is the time that Musk gets into the White House by a Green Beret against the rich. So again, the green in a lot of the psyops that we're pointing to here has been correlated with class warfare, the lower class, the left, whereas again, the right, red. Uh, Grang is asking about this TV show in Sweden. No, that was actually from 2 years ago. And the topic of flat Earth and stuff is just a clickbait topic at this point. It's just funny. And what's funny about it is they have a point. They have a point. But it's something of a misnomer. This is why I don't think that Jaron makes a valid point by being an anti-flat earther, because just because he's wrong on that point, let's say he's convinced that NASA wasn't telling a lie, um, he's somehow then turning his back on all of his followers. It's like you basically aggregated a pool of skeptics. You can't blame them for keeping their skepticism intact. But it's not a one issue thing. And I find it to be really strange that he doesn't know news is fake. Because really, we're talking about worldview. And worldview is a far more significant question than was the moon landing fake. Plain says, is the Catholic Church a big part of the puzzle that is the control system? I think it might just be a previous attempt. Like you could look at the religions, like the Bibles and stuff, as old fake news, like the fake news of the day. These are all attempts to consolidate worldview, and the newest iteration is media. Like media has replaced religion structurally, and in its function, and it's relevant to our lives, and as the dominant worldview shaper. The dominant worldview shaper right now is the TV. It's not the Bible, the Quran, or the Book of Mormon, or Dianetics, or whatever cult you're from. Those are just, they're going to go away. It's just a matter of attrition. They're not being burned, like they're not getting rid of the Bibles, but they're being rendered irrelevant. The new Bible is the News Testament, and you get that from your Black Mirror device. And everybody's in it. Everyone has their face to what is tantamount to a Bible. This is the worldview consolidator. It's essentially a sensory apparatus. And it overrides your senses. Because what I perceive doesn't correspond to what I'm being shown. But that's bad on me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I should ignore my perceptions, accept the gaslighting, and go with what they tell me. Restream brought, oh no, it's Frugal Snowbird. Frugal Snowbird says Luigi has a great haircut. Luigi Mangione is not really in prison. That whole thing was fake. And his whole character came right out of a TV show called The Madness. And in The Madness, there's a tech billionaire funding the Nazis online and helps steal the election, like Musk, who then goes into the White House. And Antifa arms up and they kill him with a ghost gun. So it's class warfare. And there's also something else too. The fact that Luigi wasn't poor. He's a rich guy who did the deed. So it's kind of like saintly in a way to renounce your worldly possessions and to step down and to leave your place of privilege and then to fight for the underprivileged. So there's something of a Robin Hood element too. You know, the whole like the demonizing the rich. But he's a folk hero. They love him. They would protect him. And in fact, in that show, The Madness, the character who's accused of this crime is actually being hidden by the neighborhood. There's quite a lot attached to that whole story that I think is worth looking back at. But it does correspond strongly with the show called The Madness. And the madness refers to specifically right-wing propaganda that turns people violent. And what is he primarily known for today? You know, aside from shit posting on X, for having opened the doors to woke right, to platforming the entire far right ecosystem. That's where you get Andrew Tate and all these other characters. Diana Southarter says fake news before moving pictures. Yeah, it's a continuous objective. And I think what we're looking at here is the one world order synthesizing all belief systems. I mean, you have how many different competing versions of heaven? Because the people in these different religions, they assume everybody else is going to hell, which is fake, or their concept of heaven is the real heaven. It's like I mean, if you really have to fight. It's like pulling teeth to get these religious people to be honest about what they actually think. Because I was having a conversation with a religious person, and I said, "Do you think the Muslims have a different God?" And he said, "Yeah." So you're a polytheist? No, their God doesn't exist. So it's like, anyway, it's just not really inclusive. So all these competing heavens, and everyone hates each other. It's like a circular firing squad. Like religion is just such horrible mind control. It's terrible. It's the worst. But what they have done is created a heaven that all the other heavens fall beneath. So space actually supplies the same function. It's our future, it's our destiny. It represents mankind as one when we ascend, when we rise above our petty differences. It's a utopian vision. All of the space bases we are shown are pretty uniform. Everyone's harmonious, sustainable. Space is our future destination as a multiplanetary species having conquered Earth, and the material world is symbolic, symbolically being conquered when we ascend into heaven. So I'm saying here, basically, that it doesn't matter what religion you are as long as you believe in space. And this unites the believers in religions with atheists who don't believe in heaven. So this is a heaven that atheists will believe in. Do you remember in 2020 celestial immunity? The astronauts were doing this thing called celestial immunity where they were taking their vaccines in space. And at the time, the arm of the ISS was punctured by space junk. So there's a hole in the arm of the space station at the exact time that they were self-injecting celestial immunity. Plain says it's like breaking a horse. That's what religion does. It breaks a human. Yeah, I mean, I use the phrase crate training, because I think it's more like dog training. And I don't mean to be derisive, but I mean in the sense that there's this master, not master slave, but master and subject, or priest and sheep. Yeah, there's a dynamic that is introduced. There's an authority that is introduced. And, my real opinion on religion is that these are all man made God constructs. And I think the real reason is to get you to externalize all of your personal power into this higher entity. I think it's meant basically also to synchronize people in worldview, but yeah, I don't really see the benefit. I guess there's some social benefits to it, I guess. Although not really. I mean, what happens when they gather in big numbers? I mean, these are superorganisms. Like I hate to be cynical, but there's, competition built into everything. I broke away from religion because I realized that religious people are just so full of hatred for each other. They don't hate the non-believers because they want to recruit you. They should just, I don't know, settle it somehow, like some kind of a league. I don't know what sport, but I don't know. There needs to be something. Or maybe not. Maybe competition's a good thing. Maybe the better religion's going to come out of it. You know what religion doesn't have a bad record as far as starting wars? Scientology. Clean hands. And you know what they do is they get rid of mind viruses. I like their structure. I think it makes sense. It's actually kind of reasonable. I don't know how true their premise is, but their idea is that we are passively picking up programming, negative programming from our environments at all times, and that these are responsible for every form of mood disorder, mental health disorder, anxiety, non optimal states. And their belief is that through their specific method of, you could call it confession, auditing, they can remove these things. So it's kind of a combination of psychotherapy and confession. You get rid of these mind viruses, you elevate your base, what they call tone, on your tone scale. Now, it sounds cool in a very self-helpy kind of way. I don't know if it's practical. Although, okay, I went to take um, a course at Scientology. I took Dianetics and some other courses, and one of them I actually found to be useful. It teaches you to not react, no matter how provocative someone is being, which is a useful skill. If somebody's yelling in your face or insulting you and attempting to goad a response, isn't it preferable that you override your response to lash out because your reaction could be used against you? Like in basic training, you learn how to stand still at attention no matter who's in your face. You learn to put up a bit of a disassociation, like a wall. So they do this thing called bull baiting, where you sit in a chair, you're not allowed to move, and someone comes in and they insult everything about your appearance. They make fun of you, they laugh at you. And if you in any way respond, you frown, you smirk, you sigh, anything you do, they start over. You have to endure it for like 15 minutes straight without laughing, breaking your stance. I thought it was a useful exercise because what they're trying to teach you is that we are very much on autopilot. A lot of things are automated. You're an automaton unless you take control, like control your own mind or someone else will. You don't want to be reactive. You want to be responsive. The media trains you to be reactive, non-skeptical, prejudiced. And I'm like, don't react. Suspend judgment, get more facts. Because if you react, it means they can push your buttons. If they can push your buttons, it means you're programmed. You're an NPC. Garank says, any advice on how to take your mental energy and direct it towards decoding what's going on? Special diet or meditation technique? Meditation, like transcendental meditation, wouldn't help you here. I think studying the formal and informal logical fallacies makes more sense if you're trying to reverse engineer their narratives. Go to the site, infiniteplanescited.com. There's a free course, Intro to Metascript. I recommend that. Meditation can't help you. And you don't want my dietary advice. I'm like the opposite of a foodie. I hate eating. I probably have a disorder, honestly. Like I don't go to restaurants. There's too many negative associations. I think it's a control thing because Well, it goes back. Just thinking about it's kind of funny. Because like I left a relationship which I'm not criticizing anybody's cooking, but I'm like I gained 30 pounds in like 9 months, and I'm like, what was it about that particular diet that I just couldn't handle? Like, was it intentionally bad? Was it like some kind of passive aggressive game? I think so. Like I was being starved. Diana Southard says, respond, don't react. Stoic Buddhist, easy, practice it. Look, and it's also the more reasonable path. It's not like I'm saying, for your own peace of mind, tune out the crazy stuff. I'm saying the crazy stuff isn't legitimately happening. So any reaction is an overreaction. So the most reasonable approach is, in fact, to go stoic. And stoic doesn't mean you don't care, it means that you accept it. And therefore, you know the futility of reacting. But no, there's no meditation. There's no special uh like for example DMT. I think that's such a psyop. Like, oh, DMT is like, oh, it wakes you up to the universe and you see the matrix. No, it's just another form of getting high. I'm certainly not a believer that drugs are some kind of a gateway to escaping. If anything, they probably make you more susceptible to the programming. I know people who've done psychedelics and drugs and all kinds of stuff, and yet they're still plugged into the TV matrix. Like they didn't transcend anything. And that's just mind control. If they control your mind at this level, then I think it's safe to say that your spirit or your transcendental aspects are effectively cut off. And I think again, I say these are somewhat synonymous. So like I think mind extends beyond the body, and I think that's the part that is gate kept in general, not just by religions, but by our dominant scientific reductionist paradigm. Okay, let's see here. Plain says meditation is a private thing. It's pretty sweet. I don't have the attention span for it. I get bored. Although, you know what? I do actually spend a lot of time reading. Is that an equivalent to meditation? I kind of feel like it is. I can just stop what I'm doing and read for 10 or 15 minutes, 20 minutes or something. And it is a state change. So I kind of think maybe reading might qualify as meditation. But sometimes I find myself standing outside at night in the dark, like basically staring at the wall, but I'm not even looking at the wall. I find that when I'm in the dark, it's easier to introspect. Like in the dark, eyes open, where it just seems like the imaginative faculties are easier to tap into. Plain Dakota says here, we're taking MDMA. Look, I don't think drugs are even necessary. The world itself, the world stage is so psychedelic. You're exposed to so much. I mean, you get what, 11, is it 11 million bytes of information every second into your being? Every second, you get a million bytes of information hitting your organism. And you can only process 50 per minute or second. So every second, you're processing 50 bytes out of 11 million. We're overwhelmed already. And our entire uh, our structure of consciousness, our ego, whatever you want to call it, is basically a constraint so that we can make sense of the chaos. Drugs just open that filter up. And I'm like, do we need to? Like, I'm trying my best to ignore stuff, like not allow my attention to be diverted into a million different things. I'm very aware now of where I direct my attention. I'm good at ignoring notifications. I stopped taking phone calls years ago. Except on IPS, I don't take phone calls. There's nobody in the world that can call me that will have me reach over, break my chain of thought, and start talking. I just don't do it. In fact, I'm so close to not doing text messaging anymore. I have too many text messages where I dread opening the phone because I only check my text messages like 2 or 3 times a day, if that. And sometimes I dread it because there are people who complain that I don't text enough, and then I have to get a complaint. And so it's like, do I want to open up a bunch of bad messages, just bad vibes. Like some days I want to take a sledgehammer to the phone, but I think I'd be better off just changing my number every few months. Like, is that too much? Like, is that, I mean, is that extreme to say I don't want to receive text messages? I don't want to receive phone calls? Like, why not? Like, if you really want to reach me, you can find me or you can write a letter. Like, where is it written that to be a good person, you have to give everybody on earth instantaneous access to your space at any time, anywhere? Like, screw that. Yeah, I'm getting rid of text messaging. I've actually said this before too. I've had people who want to call and talk offline, and I'm like, well, if you want to talk, go into Discord or call me during a live stream. And there's a reason for that as well. I don't want anyone having influence over the IPS. And people have had influence in the past over me or over the direction of this by having direct access, where if they were vetted by the group, they might have picked up on things that I missed. Because I have encountered some very shady people. And shady people don't want to talk in front of a group. And so it's a way to vet people. It's like, hey, if you're not willing to say it in front of the cult, then I probably don't need to hear it, because we're really about transparency here. We have to protect the integrity of the think tank. That's why I've said too, I'm far more interested in little support from a lot of people than having some big supporter that wants any kind of leverage. Because I've had people do this before. When I was working with Dark Matter, the reason why I was just the program manager and stopped being a host is the producer at the last minute asked me to not talk about fake things or to offer a disclaimer and to walk away from it and say it's not my opinion, like Jesse on Fire does. He's like, gosh guys, I'm really sorry to say this, but and please, if you're offended, I beg your forgiveness. Forgive me, please, but I think Charlie Kirk might not be dead. Like, he just has all these caveats, and like he's blunting the impact. I'm like, why? It's like that guy Cathexis. My heart goes out to the victims of the latest school shooting. It's like, we don't even know if it's real yet. Fake people's lives don't matter. Peter says texting is not for full-on conversations. Yeah, see, that would be my rule. Texting is, ETA. Texting is, oh, basically, are you on the way or how long or something. But like these conversations, no, because I hear it differently than when it's like I read something, I read into it. I read layers into it. Like every text message is like a conspiracy, an ulterior motive, a red flag. Like I lose trust quickly when I spot red flags that are probably just me misreading the text. Like that, like what gets me are emojis. Like, what do they mean by that emoji? Were they literally laughing? Why were they laughing? Okay, the peace sign, is that a passive aggressive way of throwing a middle finger? Or is that literally a peace sign? So no, I hate text messaging. Anufal says you avoid eating animal corpses loaded with estrogen. I don't think diet has anything to do with your perspective on media. Like that's what cults do. In fact, that's a red flag. Cults and manipulators, controllers will in fact mess with your diet first thing. A lot of food control. It's very subtle at first. I've been watching these documentaries. I don't know why it went from clavicles every day. Like, how do I get clavicles out of my feeds to Corey Feldman? And I have nothing against Corey Feldman. He's an artist, musician, eccentric. But he told this story about how he had to cancel his tour because his backup dancers quit mid-tour. And he said, "So these mosquitoes everywhere. I'm like King Kong swatting planes all day, but I kill like 30 of them a day." Anyway, so he says that his dancers, his Corey Angels backup dancers, quit mid-tour and he had to stop touring. So if you missed Corey Feldman, it's because of them. And they were planted there by Marilyn Manson, is what he said. So Marilyn Manson, to mess with Corey Feldman, sent these women into his life to become backup dancers and then savaged the tour, probably because he didn't want the competition. Marilyn Manson didn't want to bleed audiences and have half his people go to Corey Feldman. So we had to sabotage him. And I felt bad. I was like, Corey Feldman is just doing his thing and he's being messed with by these bad people. So then I watched this documentary from the perspective of those two girls, the Corey's Angels. And they said, we don't know Marilyn Manson. They said that Corey and his wife were drug taking, swinger, control freak cult leaders who starved them and body shamed them. And they restricted their diet to like fruit here and there and controlled their lives and didn't let them leave the hotel rooms. And so they fled in the middle of the night. They escaped Charlie's cult. So Corey Feldman's cult. I say Charlie's Angels, Corey's Angels. And I'm watching the accounts here, and these dancers were the type who would be targeted by cult leaders. They didn't, and they were even isolated from their friends. Like everything checks out. So looking at it now, I'm thinking Corey Feldman's got to be some kind of cult leader. But I'm pointing out here that they said that the control really started with control over food, and that was like that's a common thing in all cults because what it does is it disrupts your thought process. They can put you in a calorie deficit, makes you more controllable. Riley says peace sign means victory through division. Plain says don't bring Santos Bonacci in here. He's the astrologer guy. I'm not anti-astrology. I think it's interesting. I think the metascript might actually have a basis in the stars. I think there's a metascript that our fake history that is actually templated or partially derived from the stories from above because at their core, and I'm not oversimplifying it and saying religions are all based on sun worship, but you do find the astrotheological component throughout. And not only do you see it in the religious symbolism and iconography and myths and stories, but you see it in the movies that borrow from those. That's where you get Darth Vader, Saturn, Luke Skywalker, the sun, the cross symbolism, the severed sword hand hanging from the cross in Cloud City. That's just the myth of Osiris and Saturn, or the Set, Prince of Darkness, the ruler of darkness, killing the sun at sunset. Riley says, turns out Andrew Wilson is another Freemason. Yeah, he's a master mason, which it doesn't mean anything necessarily. It's not like there's a security clearance or he's an insider or something. It just means that he spent a minimum of 6 months to a couple of years and he paid his dues and he went through the ceremony of death and resurrection where you get killed for refusing to give away the blueprints to King Solomon's temple. But he said he's only a master mason. Not that it means anything necessarily. Like I said, like you can't really say the Masons control the world, but I do think there's some uh, commonalities here with various secret societies that explain how this thing is set up structurally. The programmers and the programmed. But I think security clearances are more relevant today than secret society memberships. Oh, Santos is a rabid vegan, says Suzette Ann. Okay, now I remember him. Okay, so Santos Bonacci had a debate with Craig, Fight the Flat Earth's Craig. And he was trying to intimidate Craig by bringing on what looked to be some kind of like a bodyguard or some, like he brought in like muscle onto his show. And they're just out there like talking tough and he's very aggressive. I don't know what he's defending. Like, honestly, a lot of these people are just unhinged on both sides. I think it's a pointless conversation at this point. I don't want to hear somebody trying to sell the idea that the earth is flat unless they're willing to go on some kind of an expedition. Because there's a point where Uh, I think it's kind of incumbent on you to provide evidence to subvert the status quo, unless you want to be stuck in a little bubble somewhere. But there were so many people who were into the topic and so little interest in doing any serious exploration. We were behind Mad Mike Hughes because he had an actual plan to go to space, or at least see how possible it is. But he was working on a show for the Science Channel, and for the season finale, they wanted him to do a 5,000-foot jump. And on that particular launch, he probably got knocked unconscious by the force of it because it was like 90 more pounds of water than before. It's a steam-powered rocket, but he wasn't conscious enough to deploy the parachutes. But the subsequent launch was supposed to be a raccoon, where it uses a massive helium balloon to take the rocket above the stratosphere, high enough to where it's past the densest part, and then from there, supposedly, you could reach 74 miles. Ryler says Santos is a grifter. He promised to build a school in Mexico and just took the money. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that one. There's all kinds of grifters around here, though. I mean, the flat Earth thing did attract a lot of not only grifters, but a lot of very questionable characters, like very, very bad people. I don't understand why, but yes, for some reason, the PSYOP Entertainment Complex is what we call it here. They invest quite a lot into controlling conversation and discourse, but for some reason, they tend to recruit a lot of people out of prisons who make deals to do intelligence work. And for some reason, there's a disproportionate number of such characters around the flat earth topic where it's like, wait, you have a conference, and out of 10 keynote speakers, 8 of them are offenders of some kind, or people who should be behind bars, people who should have been to the wood chipper. Like, honestly, Joshua Swift, what's his name? Authentic Intent. Yeah, he should have been wood chippered. He should not have been platformed at a conference and then given an interview at the Daily Beast. Homeless Lep says, anyone who denies black pill and lookism is a grifter. Oh, looks maxing is fake. Come on. It's just to make you feel inadequate and resentful and like you will never win so that you have a gripe with society and you can then scapegoat the Jays. So no, black pill and looksism is kind of for losers. I mean, self-identified losers. I don't mean to be pejorative, but you're like, yeah, I'm not 6 feet tall. I don't have six-pack abs and a 6-digit income. So I'm never gonna, get the girls. It's like, what does that even mean? I haven't seen any evidence that only looks maxed males are procreating. Like average people are having children all the time. So it can't just be looks according to this particular set of aesthetic standards. Nor are the standards that the looks maxers promote ubiquitous and recognized as such. And I'm pretty sure the whole looks maxer movement, in addition to being a bunch of misogynists, I think they're also very racist. And nobody talks about that. Like the looks maxer crowd, yeah, they're super racist. Ryler says, I got mewing confused with meowing, and I was meowing for weeks expecting to look better. So you're meowing like a cat and tapping your face with a hammer? Yeah, mewing is where I'm talking about looks maxers, they stick their chin out or something. They do something with their tongue, and they like suck in their neck. I mean, so they're sitting around making these crazy faces and hitting themselves with hammers and snorting amphetamines in order to look better than other people on the internet, thinking that it's gonna. But anyway, it's just so boring. When I look at these channels and I'm like, why is this being promoted through woke right, America first, traditional values demographics? I mean, Nick Fuentes popularized clavicles, knock-kneed clavicles, who paid $30,000 to have his nostrils reduced and lost a lot of fans. But anyway, so for one thing, this person who comes, yes, I deny the black pill, because the black pill concept of the world only makes sense if all the bad news is real. What I'm saying is it's all fake and it's mind war, and it's fundamentally, therefore, less of a bad thing. It's less of a black pill. Homo says, Mew, whenever foods are around, to not look as dysgenic. Even the phrase dysgenic, I mean, so what they have done is, and this is a woke right, this is actually a manosphere thing, is they have presented this caricature of women and the world today as essentially feminism has destroyed your chances of ever having a traditional wife. So it's like, on the one hand, Nick Fuentes and America First, they're pushing for traditional values, traditional families, have kids, don't let her go to college. They're always griping about the age of consent. They don't think women should be educated or they should be allowed to vote. So they want to have big families and a white picket fence. So that, okay, that makes sense. They're attaching themselves to this idealistic kind of version of the past, MAGA. And then they pivot into looks maxing, where it's like Night at the Roxbury. It's like it's about the clubbing life and how they look on camera. And to me, that doesn't really sound like traditional values. Like either you want a trad wife and a Christian family and a bunch of children, and you want that to be like your identity, or you want to be in this hyper competitive dating world, uh, getting your facial surgeries or cosmetics, wearing makeup and stuff in order to score higher on these scales. It's just it's not really making sense to me. If anything, looks maxing flies directly, I think, in the face of traditional values in so many ways. It's pandering to a lifestyle that basically treats women as objects, as for entertainment, and not for building families. It's just completely askew. Plus, these guys are 100% um, feds, plants. They're not real. I mean, they're real, but what I'm saying is their popularity is the result of gaming the system through largely video clipping. Speaking of these characters, Chud the Builder has been, I think he's out or something. I got to double check that. But none of these people we talk about would ever have been in my field of view of my own volition. I didn't go out hunting for this stuff. This stuff is artificially injected into our algos for some inexplicable reason. Homeless LEP says ugly jeans equals no women around you, period. You were here last time lamenting your lack of companionship. And I think it has more to do with your negative attitude than your genes. I don't think, and again, just look around the world and tell me it's not just average people. Like, I don't think I think you're looking at this standard that they've given you of looks and levels of success, and you think that actually applies to reality. It actually does not. Morales says Nazis were obsessed with words like dysgenic and looks maxing. Well, that's where it comes from. It's only a woke right thing. And they're acting like they invented it. I'm like, wait, people have always been concerned with their appearance and their looks. But it's like this aesthetic that they brought out that they hold forth as some kind of an ideal. And it's really kind of not. I don't think it's an ideal. They look like average chuds. What does chud stand for again? Something underground, something. Let me see. There's an acronym here. Chud. Okay, here we go. This is as opposed to a Chad. Okay, here we go. It is derived from the 1984 movie Chud, so it is cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Okay, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. So a good example of this would be Nick Fuentes, because they're making fun of basement dwellers. And Fuentes, who's a character actor, he's not real. I mean, there's no way. He lives in his mother's basement. So she supports him. She probably, brings down pizza pockets warmed up for him every few hours. Like his mother owns that house and has him in the basement. And then he spends his entire day bashing women. That's kind of his whole thing. When he's not I mean, look, they bash women, they bash, well, everyone. Funny. Okay, anyway, we got sidetracked a little bit here. Well, no, it's important to learn. We've got to expand our vocabulary. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Anufel says, I don't involve with the females because I can't afford it. I don't have money to have families. What would your great grandparents say? Like, if your ancestors had that attitude, you wouldn't exist. They probably had dirt floors. Like, well, I don't have marble floors. I don't have a mansion, so I guess I can't procreate. I mean, come on. That's just a cop out. And I'm not telling you that you should, but I'm saying if you wanted to, you probably could. You just have to put yourself out there. I hate that kind of advice. Homeless Lep says, having a girlfriend is gay because they all cheat. So you're getting blanked by the guys they're cheating on you with. So you're saying that when you are intimate with her, you are therefore being blanked by all of her previous boyfriends? Like, that's absurd. So you want something pure. Interesting. So this is where you get into people like, who started it? Was it Steven Crowder, Owen Benjamin, Nick Fuentes, and a host of others? A bunch of these right-wing chuds came out one day, and they all said they want to lower the age of consent. Like, they want to get to them before the feminists do. Like, total groomer talk. A bunch of groomers. But anyway, we've had this conversation with this guy before in chat. His name is Homeless Lep. And I just see him as embodying the black pillar, like the incel. So he's involuntarily celibate. If he had his way, he wouldn't be celibate. But the reason why he is because women are so corrupt. And Nick Fuentes did say that having girlfriends is like basically unmanly, that you shouldn't date. And the looks maxers are like that too. So it's very contradictory. But I think it's also notable here that it's a government created demographic. And I think the incel is equivalent to the suicide bomber. The suicide bombers are basically coming out and they're like, they're suppressed, but they're like, we're going to take the great Satan out. And they're corrupt women who don't cover their hair and who are, corrupted by Hollywood and such. So they have this like great Satan thing that they're fighting, and they're holy warriors. And they're holy because they're celibate. Because their reward's in heaven, of course. And the incels are the same way, where they see themselves as holy, as pure. Like, no, these women are corrupt. So they have to take out they're basically against the great Satan, although they call it the deep state. But it's the same thing. And their view is that these women are corrupted. And so they create people, or they essentially canonize individuals like Elliot Rodgers and other incel shooters. That last shooter in Montreal was an incel with a 104-page manifesto about basically Western women and why we need to get rid of capitalism or something. Homeless says, it's because of my genes, I would have been an incel in medieval times too. Effie Garter says, lower your standards. Yeah, that's something too. Maybe your standards are too high. And that's just a healthy thing to consider. And also, are those standards even standards that you believe in? Because there are artificial standards of beauty and attractiveness that are constantly evolving. And they say it's in the eye of the beholder, and I think that's likely probably true. Like, there are probably people who find you beautiful no matter what you look like. Homeless Lep. Or you can find someone sight impaired. Someone who's always wearing beer goggles. Like there's always an exception. But I'm very optimistic. But then if your genes are so bad, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just. But do you want to deprive the world of your progeny? Have like a second generation black pillar? He'll be even darker than you, even doomier. It's a very gloomy perspective, to be honest. Lilybell says, is this live? Nope. It's a replay. And that is a very coincidental comment. Anufel says, comment on, I work basically 60 hours a week, can't afford a roof, and barely feed myself. Why try to have a family in those conditions? The math is impossible. Well, the answer there is you have to model successful results from other people who are succeeding. So do what they do. You might have to move. I mean, it just comes down to that. Ryler says the age of consent was raised to slow down the population. A woman can have lots of kids if she starts early. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I mean, yeah, that is technically true. But, we're also talking about, maturity and when we say consent, we're talking about psychologically, can they? I don't know. I'm not really, I don't really believe that. Like the idea of protecting children, children's rights and stuff, like this is all new stuff. We've come from a very, I think, darker place. But their version or their view on it is that the age of consent is a barrier to them holding down their particular structure for society. Homeless Lep says, dude, half that manifesto is about video games. What do you mean? The 104-page manifesto from the Montreal guy? No, it's not actually. It's mostly about capital. He's anti-capitalist and he's a communist, but he's also misogynist, which is kind of weird because usually the communists are also feminists. So it's a very contradictory document. And I found that a lot of his commentary seemed to be predictive and very much, I think, identical to what we heard in the monologues from Citizen Vigilante. Suzette Ann says there are plenty of ugly people who have married and procreated throughout time. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. I don't think it's a barrier. Like these looks masters are like, if you're not, they say if you're not 6 feet tall, six-figure income, and six-pack abs, that you're never going to get a date. I'm like, have you ever been out to like a regular just bar? Like you could tell these people live on their phones and they're constantly comparing themselves to other people, which is a bad habit because there's always going to be somebody taller, smarter, funnier, better looking than everybody. Like that's never not going to be true. There's always going to be somebody, if you have that zero-sum game mentality, scarcity. Yeah, that wasn't nice, is that, and when I said find somebody sight impaired. Yeah, but I mean, what I was meaning here is that looks aren't everything for everybody. But I did mean the beer goggle thing. You can find people with low standards. Hacksaw says, I heard a popular Canadian mortgage broker, of all people, to say on YouTube, he tells single people in his office to lower their standards. Fascinating. I just question, like, why do you want a relationship? Like, I'm actively avoiding. Homeless says, as an American, I know the only woman who won't cheat on a 5'7" guy with a blank 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 who is bald would be a super deformed grandma mutant giga infertile Free Martin-esque. Yeah, it take a little bit of an adjustment, but you could acclimate yourself to that. So basically you feel like you're entitled to someone beautiful. You're entitled to a pageant winner. Like who's single right now, homeless slep? Erica Kirk. Why not? Like you have to ground yourself in reality. But also you have to ask, are you putting any effort into it? Because last time you said that you live under a bridge and you're covered in rags. Like, I guarantee if you bought better shoes and, made an effort, that would be viewed as a character trait that is attractive. People taking care of themselves are attractive. It actually does score points in that. I think that's the common thing, right? Like, even somebody who is physically attractive, but then they're letting themselves go to crap, they're no longer attractive. So I think caring about yourself matters, I'm sure. But I don't know, don't take my advice. Like, definitely, like, in fact, you should probably do the opposite of anything I say in this regard. I'm not the person to ask. My life is a complete disaster in that regard, an unmitigated series of disasters. Lily Bell says, I'm slightly inebriated, so I might regret my comments. Well, you spelled inebriated correctly. Riley says, marriage is a scam, something the wealthy royals did to solidify alliances. The sheeple just copied it. It's not a natural thing. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if I agree because I have too many examples of happy and successful married people. And it seems to have worked. It seems like it works in general. So I don't know if I'd say it's a scam. Homo says Erica Kirk is a blanked dark triad roided up CRISPR Mossad brute. Oh, she was blanked by dark triad roided up CRISPR Mossad brutes. Well, what's your background? I mean, are you like pure like Charlie Kirk was when he met her? Like, are you? That's kind of a double standard. All right, see, Eddie Ben Wanderer says, Lep Life is a Sicilian South Italian American. He's 5'7" and his face clean shaven, looks like he could be in a Star Wars movie. His ex ruined his life and put a restraining order on him and stalked him all the way to California. We're sort of in this weird territory now. We're hanging out under the bridge with homeless Lep, who is a black pillar who believes that genes are destiny and your looks determine how successful you become in the world. Which again, the real world take on this, the meat verse take on it, is that that's just not true. So that's another thing too. Your frame of reference. When I say someone's a world stager, I refer to, is your worldview centered in the metaverse more than the meat verse? Are you in the real world, or are you mostly immersed in the sim? And there's this confirmation bias. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you've accepted the terms that they give you. So like you accept the framework here, the black pill framework. It's like blue pillar just means somebody who accepts the story that's been given, the mainstream. Red pillar means they are distrustful of mainstream, and so they automatically defer to the alternative. And everything they see will confirm that bias. All their sources will also reinforce that. They will gravitate towards those echo chambers. So if you accept the black pill premise, you're going to hang around black pill websites and you're going to hang out and commiserate with other incels. So you and all your incel friends sit around talking about how bad women are and how you're losers at life because you don't have the right genes. And the people you hang around with have a tremendous influence on your experience. And like I said, it's just self-reinforcing. Homeless says, in real life, I only see tall brutes being respected by foids. So foid, I don't know for sure, but it's a derogatory term for women. So you're saying that only tall men get women? Okay, here it is. It's a slang that combines female and oid. It's used by the incel, involuntary celibate, manosphere subcultures to degrade women by claiming that they are robotic. Okay, so it's a combination of like female and android. He's like, I don't know why I can't get a date. And every other thing out of your mouth is something derogatory and disrespectful towards women. Like maybe that's why. And then he's also saying that men who do get the women are tall brutes. Eddie says, I knew that about black pills, never went that deep. Yeah, it's really not new. I actually first came across it through the work of Henry Makow in his book Cruel Hoax, Feminism and the New World Order. It's a series of articles, and basically everything he's ever said has been repackaged by a lot of these influencers. None of it's novel. And he was very much of the view that Western women were bad, feminism was bad. So he moves to like Thailand to find a wife, and he writes a book about it. It's like called A Long Way to Go for a Date. And there was this trend on the right for some time that in order to find a wife, you had to go shopping around the world because you like a mail order bride, because American women aren't submissive enough. Lily Bell says this live stream is going wild. Well, didn't you say you were drinking? Suzette Ann says Stepford wives. Yeah, that's what they want. They want the trad wife is a Stepford wife. But it's like you again, you're setting these really high unrealistic expectations, and you're told to have these expectations. You're told to be entitled for it, and then when you don't get it, you're resentful, and that resentment is being channeled by the manosphere into your engagement for clicks. Because essentially, what you're doing is you're making money for this manosphere cult and its leaders. It's all just propaganda, and you're mired in it. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Riley says, I'm too Ohio to get a woman. I don't know what that means. Lily says, I'm too Austin to get a date. Eddie says, I feel like incels are honeypotted to commit mass murder. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That they're equivalent of the suicide bomber. And there's some kind of analog here. And their views, the woke right views, are very much copacetic with like Islamic views as far as how they've been caricaturized with regard to the terrorists and their idea of this jihad holy war. It's completely inorganic, and it does have ties to the theme of domestic terrorism. That's why you had the Montreal shooter with these opinions. Let's see what else we have here. Homeless Lep. We'll give him one more comment. No, I'm actually not. Like, okay, I can't even read this. Uh, and I've seen these attitudes reflected elsewhere. It's not just sexist, which is sexist is just like, oh, you gotta be a trad wife. You can't vote because whatever. But that goes into like misogyny. And so like if you're overtly expressing these things and then it repels them, like I'm sorry, but like you're creating your own problem. If you hate them so much, why do you want one? Like it's kind of a weird thing you have going on. It's a good thing that they're developing robotics. Like you won't have to worry about it in the future. Like that THX 1138, which was it 1973? That was George Lucas's first movie. Was it Dennis Hopper? But anyway, yeah, I think these black pill people are agents anyway. Like homeless Lep is probably a Fed because there's no way he would be carrying this collection of propaganda and all these predictable attitudes unless he'd been fully indoctrinated. And you'd have to really be into it. And if he was really into it and all about that black pill life, he wouldn't be here, which makes me think he's some kind of operative. Because one of the things these operatives do is they go into your chat and they say things so that new people come in and they say, well, I don't want to associate with these guys. You want to call in? You know what? You have to wait a couple of minutes. I have to plug in the phone. I'll open up phones in a few minutes. Sync Floyd says they got to be silicon, uncanny valley, synthetic. Yeah, that's probably true too. Now, can somebody tell me? There's these new androids going around. They're like 4 feet tall. They don't have heads, and they're constantly screwing up. Like they're dancing and they kick people. They're cleaning houses and stuff. They're walking around perfectly on 2 feet, uh, moving objects, stocking shelves, and a lot of people I know say these are real, and people are saying these things are real, and I'm looking at them as like I understand the robot dogs are real, but these other things are too smooth in their movements that they're either people in costumes and they're using like chroma key to take the person out, or it's just pure CGI. But I don't believe those things are real. Somebody let me know. Are these robots that I'm seeing like all over the place? Are they these? I think they're fake. Eddie says homeless Lep has a rat tail and a bald cut. Well, yeah, absolutely. The rat tail. Man, who else has that? What was that one guy's name? Oh yeah, the Waterman, Dan the Waterman. He had a rat tail. So Dan the Waterman. I don't know if he was a Fed or a troll. I don't know. I don't even want to say the guy's name because he'll show up. But anyway, he had a rat tail. Matt, it's like it was and it was bald. So I'm like, is it the same guy? Fascinating. Like I said though, I have to be careful about what I say because people will show up. Okay, let's see here. Phones are open. It's 866 hoax. Again, 888-866 hoax. So Ann says I met Dan the Waterman at FE meetups in Southern California. Yeah, I've met him too. We haven't talked in a while, so I'll have to reach out. I just remember he was trolling me about something, and I went and I looked at his Google ratings, like his Yelp reviews, and the reviews were hilarious. Like apparently they called him in to fix the sink, and I don't know what he was up to, but he got a lot of reviews, and a lot of people are like questioning the wisdom of letting this guy in their homes. But I'll leave it at that. It's kind of funny. I mean, I used to get these trolls and stuff, and I would like look into them and be like, okay, they're bored and they're escaping some obvious stuff in their lives. Let's see here. It says, I question how Lep gets away with camping in a forest where people were creeping. No, I think that the supposed homeless Lep guy who's here with the black pill uh, incel stuff, the guy's probably in some FBI headquarters somewhere. There's no way he's really some homeless guy under a bridge, bald with a rat tail, self-admitted bad genes, dysgenic, complaining here. The black pill movement is associated with like these sporadic terror attacks against women in manifestos. So there's no way he's real. This person again, his name is Homeless Lep. Um, he's some kind of an operative or an agent, and his presence here is incongruent with what our think tank is about anyway. Like it's not hard to flush out the fakes. Lily Bell says, I'm so sad about somebody's death. I don't know who that is, but I don't even know if it's real. Like, for example, Sam Neill, great actor. I like his work. In the Mouth of Madness is one of my top 5 movies. And I was very disappointed to find that just after the 33rd anniversary of Jurassic Park that he dies. He died on 7/13. But then I thought about it. I'm like, wait, he played the Antichrist. He played Damien Thorne. Damien Thorne has been correlated with Donald Trump, DT, the Antichrist narrative. And this has been talked about for some time, that there's some parallels between Trump and Sam Neill's character as the Antichrist. So the significance here is that he dies on 7/13, the day that Trump got his Antichrist head wound. If you look at the biblical meta script with Butler, Pennsylvania, and the beast getting a head wound in front of the world, and it's a miracle. And that actually fits. So to me, I'm thinking he probably has been retired from the world stage. "2025 Cake Crash says, fake until proven real. I do believe the awkward and slow remote-controlled Tesla bots, only to give IRL shame status to Pope Elon. I like how he accidentally broke the Cybertruck window." Yeah, there's a couple more movies I need to look at that have been pointed out where there's these Musk characters. People get caught up in the emotional side, like Eric Biscoff, who was 30 some years in the WWE, said that after he retired, he started watching the news and politics. And he was shocked to find that both news and politics use the same type of framing techniques that WWE uses. We have these polarities and these two sides fighting. One's a heel. But he says this is always a dynamic that is being used. And he says they use the dynamic to get people emotionally involved so they don't over intellectualize the fake fight. So they get into it. And I think that's absolutely what we always see every single day. They get us to get involved in the nuances of the character. It's like you're like, oh, Elon Musk is a bad guy, and he's the bane of civilization, and Trump is evil, and they get you fighting over these manufactured characters, provably manufactured. Like that one guy's ranting about Erica Kirk. Like, we don't know anything about her. You only know the character they've shown you. Like, oh no, she's a intelligence agent who honeypotted Charlie Kirk to get rid of this powerful Christian leader who would have been president. They have these stories they fall into that they're really just compelled to because they're emotionally entangled. It's just like wrestling. It's kayfabe. Let's see here. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Fake until proven real. But Musk has been showing up in a number of movies as a counterpart, like he's in The Boys. And one of the common denominators is he dies. He gets shot, he gets killed, defenestrated, levitated, exploded. He's constantly getting killed. In Naked Gun, he doesn't die, but he gets arrested. And he controls the electric vehicles. And his enemies all die because their vehicles speed off the road, and he's laughing at them on the screen. But the idea that Elon Musk is an actual arch villain of some kind is completely and entirely manufactured. If you're overreacting to Musk or these characters, it's because they are getting reactions out of you. That's what their whole purpose is. But the fact that they coexist in entertainment in these predictive programming parallels tells you that they're scripted. They don't exist in the real sense. But yes, the Musk character is both known for in these recent iterations, not just dying, but also he's consistently behind some agenda that involves spreading a mind virus that turns society violent and it tears itself apart while the elite are out hiding. So in Mountainhead, Venice is based on Musk, and they're hiding on a mountaintop as the world burns because of his generative AI and his social media empire that has spread chaos in the world. And this movie comes out just as the No Kings protests break out in 1,000 protests around the world. LA's burning anti-ICE protests, burning cop cars, and it's like, wait, this was just like the movie Mountainhead. In Naked Gun, he sets out to release what's called the plot device on every phone, and it turns people violent while the rich go hide in bunkers. In The Madness, he invests billions of dollars into right-wing neo-Nazis online to spread hate and violence. And of course, to get the president elected. He cheats or something. So the Musk character is a heel. That was my point here. It's like a wrestling character. And if you're getting involved with it emotionally, then it's pretty fair to say you're not intellectualizing it. And that's where they want you. They want you in your feelings. But what we do here is we hyperanalyze and we look at the details and the facts, and we look at the programming as provocations. It's designed to provoke you, but we don't get provoked. Ryler says, isn't Grimes County where Elon is building his huge data center? I don't know, but I started the rumor that Grimes is actually fake. Because I watched a video where Grimes was talking about how AI would perfect communism and get rid of any kind of corruption, and it would be able to replace the need for forced labor with something else. So basically, AI is going to come save us, and AI and communism. She said this years ago. Her mannerisms, her speech cadence, everything was just 100% matching Elon Musk. So I thought either she's regurgitating stuff she overheard, or she's basically like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. So Gollum is basically an actor wearing these sensors all over his body, and he does all these actions, and then the AI avatar, the computer generated avatar, is what you actually see. So I thought, could Grimes be Musk's Gollum? Could Grimes be an avatar character played by Elon Musk? Both the visuals and the voice just being changed. And that bite where she's talking, it's only like 30 seconds, where she's talking about AI and communism. It was just the most Musk thing I've ever heard. So yeah, I think Grimes might not exist. And also, I'm not against data centers. I'm not against flock cameras. I'm not against 5G towers. It went from burning 5G towers to cutting down flock cameras. Like, I'm not against that stuff. And if you're against 5G, flock cameras, and data centers, then why do you own a smartphone? These people are like anti-grid, but they're immersed in the grid. And then you get these people who do, I call it LARP steading, like, oh, I'm going off the grid. Yeah, but you're terminally online. So you might be out there in the woods, you might be on your own land milking goats, but you're tweeting about it. You're performatively homesteading and milking goats on camera, but you're fundamentally plugged in. That is not off the grid. And then, moreover, these people who go off the grid tend to be uh, totally inside of the matrix when it comes to the propaganda. Like, they don't know what's real and fake. So I would say that you can't go off the grid physically. You can't go off the grid unless you're both physically and mentally off the grid. Mentally is more important. Like, I am off the grid, even when I'm in the middle of the city plugged into the internet. And that's because I exited the Truman Show. I'm not confused. I don't think Katy Perry went to space. A case of sudden red pilling says, you have kids, Tim. No, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, I was sort of for a few years. I had what one of my exes did, and so I was like, and honestly, when I was basically more like a standard family life, um, I would say I understand the um, uh, why people are happy with that. There's something just inherently stable about it, and it makes sense. So, like, yeah, I'm totally like not against it or anything, but it's a good thing because I tend to attract a lot of psychopaths and other aberrant personality disorders. Ryler says, Tim, please prove that you're no AI. I am. I'm a replicant. I am a replicant, according to RJ. RJ over at YouTube was just double checking because their AI said that I'm inauthentic and I'm not real. And so he comes in, he's like, I'm sorry. I know that this is kind of frustrating, but you are not a real person, so we will demonetize you. I'm just saying, if I did have kids, they'd be born evil psychopaths because I've just had it's my fault, I'm sure. I'm a terrible judge of character. Kate Crash says, get some ataraxia. What is more emotionally charged than anxiety over a potential future mate? Direct triggering of the animal mind. Right. Well, I think it's funny though when people say, well, I don't want to have kids because the world's so crazy. Like that guy who lives under the bridge, homeless Lep. And I'm like, he's like, I'm not financially secure. Someone else was saying that too. But I don't know. If you look back a few generations, you'll see that that's not really a reason not to necessarily. Like it's like it's daunting when you think of it all at once. But everything happens, in increments. But I mean, don't trust me. I'm an optimist. Blood Story says mental illness is so high right now. I don't disagree with that, but I think that it's more the case that they're diagnosed more, they're recognized more. But as far as like diagnosing and stuff, like I use terms, but I don't like to use like psychiatric terms. Like people are so quick to call someone else a narcissist or whatever they have of the day. And it's like you don't need a clinical diagnosis to recognize a very aberrant, unempathic, psychotic character. And it doesn't even matter, nature or nurture, it doesn't even matter. It's like, well, if the person constitutes a never ending succession of noxious stimuli, then you should just, cut the cord. The problem is, a lot of psychos are really good at concealing it until you're firmly under their influence. Once they're like you know how it's like a strategy where a manipulator moves in and they replace everyone else. Like they're the center of your universe because basically they have this agenda of replacing everybody else. So once your connection to everybody else and everything else from your past has atrophied, then they drop the mask. Then it's low effort. And now you're just anchored to someone who is not the person you met, but they burned all your bridges. So now you're isolated. Like it's a game, it's a strategy. I've just seen it. It's almost like some people want to turn you into their personal loosh cow. Like there's something insidious about it. But I'd say it's undetectable. Like I don't believe you can find red flags. Like, oh, I detected a red flag, I dodged a bullet. I don't think so. Because the real clever ones don't give away red flags. It's so easy to underestimate how devious and diabolical some people are because if you're a good person and you don't think like a psychopath, psychopaths and their logic are going to be sort of outside of your radar. You won't detect them. I mean, I used to read a lot of true crime, and I will detect a serial killer, but I'm not going to detect somebody who wears a fake persona in order to become like the like they do this thing like, oh, I'm your soulmate, and then later it's like, no, it's your cellmate. There's something that people do. I don't know why. Diana says, I've had. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so ghosting. Ghosting is another thing too. Apparently, a lot of people are doing that these days. And, I'm guilty of ghosting. Yeah, I definitely do that. It's not difficult. Like, I've changed numbers to ghost groups of people at a time. But do you really have to explain everything to everybody? Like, who has time for that? We don't have, that's like our most precious resource is time, and everything's competing for it. And I refuse to waste my time. I don't even bother with like revenge. Like, I don't care anymore. It's just a waste of time and energy. I'm more likely to block somebody than respond if their comments are obnoxious. Unless I'm trying to illustrate a point, but I'm trying not to feed into it. Like I said earlier, I'm done taking phone calls. I've about had it with text messages. And there's so much competition for my attention that for everyone's attention, I think it might be a good idea to start at a baseline. Like I'm suggesting like media minimalism or media fast when it comes to when you're not actively looking for it. Like when you're not actively engaging in media, research, and news, how much of it are you passively being hit with? Commenter says, I moved to Montana 5 years ago, love my life finally. I bet you see stars. Like I'm always where there's so much noise pollution that I realize, well, I'm actually very disconnected from from like the because I used to monitor the planets, astrology, the signs. Not that I'm an astrologer, but I was always kind of aware of where we were, and I always made it a point to note where the different stars are positioned and such. But depending on where I live, it's easy to lose track of that. 2025 says, this is Kate Crash. It's rare, but the adverts in my dreams are mildly annoying. I don't mean to insert things I can't verify, so it's a good question. What influences the experience of a dream? Yeah, I've had these instances where I'm thinking about something and I get an ad for it. And, not just like the run of the mill coincidence, but for example, I was driving one night thinking about TED Talks, how it would be nice if I could condense the entirety of the handbook for the deprogrammed into a TED Talk length talk, like 15, 20 minutes. Like, what would that take? So I was actually visualizing what this would take. Just in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, these are the core concepts, 90 seconds to each. Need to have an anecdote. No, I'm breaking it down, and I'm listening to music on YouTube. And I didn't pay for YouTube Red, so I get an ad. The next ad is an ad for TED Talks. And this person describes how it blew his channel up and how he'd never given a speech before, etc. And I thought that's kind of weird, but it's not the only time that's happened. So I've had it, I've kind of thought for some time that maybe this idea of Neuralink is a red herring. Like, hey guys, in the future, we're going to put something in your head so you can be directly connected to the internet, and we can read your thoughts and sell you products that you really want. And I'm thinking, wait, maybe that's the misdirection. They don't need to implant anything in your head. Maybe that's not necessary. Maybe your skull is like a natural transponder, just like maybe we can just be directly hacked. So as long as you think that, oh well, that's not happening yet because I don't have a chip in my head. It's like, well, little do you know. Sort of like Elon Musk's company, the boring company. It's like, oh, we're doing Hyperloop. We're going to drill tunnels, and then we can send you in a tunnel from this state to that state at this speed. Hyperloop is going to be the future of transportation. So they show it to you like, oh, this is a cool idea for the future. It's like Jetsons. It's like some futuristic concept. Meanwhile, the continent is already Swiss cheese with tunnels, and they already have the interconnectivity of some vast underground empire that all of our tax dollars that were going to deep space research actually went to underground infrastructure. Like they have a way of misdirecting us, is what I'm saying. Okay, let's see here. Ryler says Neuralink is the Antichrist propaganda. The Antichrist is a popular fiction. It's almost a Hollywood invention. So much of what people think about with religion is practically Hollywood. Like, I was surprised to find how relatively insignificant Satan actually is. How these are mostly like there's this area where literature and tradition and fiction has merged, like fiction and movies has merged with religious concepts, and you have to separate them. Although it's also contradictory because I've had some Christians tell me there is no hell. That's just a mistranslation. And then someone else says, well, no, the Apocrypha, the harrowing, where during the 3 days that he's on the cross, Jesus is in hell confronting Beelzebub and rescuing souls. So they can't both be correct. Well, the institution doesn't accept that one. Well, if the institution is corrupt, then maybe that is the one we should be paying attention to. It's very confusing. And then you look at like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gnostic texts, and I'm like, okay, you have these other findings like in the 40s that add to the whole body of stuff that people are consulting. And we're told that these were found, scrolls, the Nag Hammadi library, that these were like found in like clay vessels. So am I supposed to believe that there were a bunch of clay vessels from a couple thousand years ago that were just unburied just a few decades ago? And now we have to include that in the biblical concepts of the world, or maybe not. So I imagine that these things could have been written in the 30s and backdated. I mean, how easy would that be? Like a fake backstory. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Riley says Satan was a Christian invention. Well, I don't know how true that is. There's just concepts of them have evolved. That's kind of what I mean here. But the Temple of Set, which we talk about because the founder wrote the book War to Mind War, Michael Aquinos. So he's a theistic Satanist, and he's known for, of course, not only his book on psychological warfare, but he was working with underneath a general who's now with TPUSA. So you actually have a direct TPUSA connection to organized Satanism. But he founded the Temple of Set, which is an Egyptian deity, because he wanted his organization to worship a deity, but he could find no basis for worshiping an actual Satan. It was too much of a construct. The Church of Satan was more or less using the name ironically or symbolically, and were openly atheistic and did not believe in a Satan. So it's like, okay, if you're going to be a real Satanist, you got to find a replacement. And his best replacement was Set, which doesn't really have a strong connection. So the Temple of Set, even though they're called satanic, they're using like Egyptian gods, and they have a pentagram. So it's kind of a bastardized thing. I don't know if it's legitimate. Ted Stryker says Corey Feldman is a horrible musician, and his vocals leave much to be desired. Uh, yeah, he does this like Michael. He's like Michael Jackson, like the Timu Michael Jackson. Like he does these Michael Jackson-esque moves. And I had a bit of something respect. I respect the work ethic, I guess you could say. I thought he's just hardworking and independent, and everybody's laughing. He doesn't care. Like if Dance Like No One Is Watching was a person, it's Corey Feldman. Like he's like completely unself-conscious in it. So I thought, well, maybe people find that endearing. But then I watched these documentaries, and it's like, nah, he's a cult leader. He's a cult leader. He's starving his girls, drugging them, um, not even informing them that they're going to these clubs, certain types of clubs. Like everything about Corey Feldman just says cult leader. Even to the point where when his victims get away, he accuses them of working for Marilyn Manson. Because a lot of cult leaders will demonize the people that leave, which religions do too. Apostates, you're supposed to kill them. If somebody leaves your church, you're supposed to kill them. That's like a religious commandment from God in most religions. Like it's better to have never known God than to have known God and then abandoned him. That's like this idea. Ryler05 says, is Taylor Swift a cult leader? No, I wouldn't say so. Well, I mean, maybe in a sense, but you have to make a distinction between destructive cults and just subcultures. Not all cults are destructive. And when we say cults, the term we use it, we talk about coercive cults, where the individual's value is essentially as an appendage of the group. So they have to conform to the group identity. Their own identity is of no value. So you sacrifice yourself to be part of a destructive cult. So yeah, I find the stories of Corey Feldman very questionable now with regard to his accusations against Charlie Sheen. Those are likely made up. Like it's all becoming very questionable. And if you watch any of these documentaries, which I don't recommend, they were just flooding my feed. The accounts of the people who've been around Corey and his wife, it's almost like they're talking about a couple of cult leaders, like the two of them. It's a duo, and that's actually their structure, this cult structure. It's a duo, and I've seen that a lot. One of the things Charles Manson did in order to recruit people is the reason why he had these girls as a front was to attract male members. to bring in. And that's another psyop we should deconstruct. It looks really, it's kind of like convoluted, but there are some threads that are interesting. So you look at, there was Bobby Basoli, one of the cult members, Manson's cult members, who stabbed somebody separately. I think he went to jail for that. But he was in a film by the Satanist Kenneth Anger, a film called Invocation of My Demon Brother. And in that film was Mick Jagger. So you got Mick Jagger and a Manson guy in a film by like the number 2 person in the Satanic Church. And then at the time, you also have the Susan Atkins was one of the church's witches, one of their dancing witches. They had this performance group, and she was the one who killed Sharon Tate. So you have another interesting link there. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, had some connections to that group. But then anyway, the Church of Satan seems to be like this hub of activity, and it connects a lot of unlikely people. Like I think you can draw some lines like John Travolta and William Shatner hanging out with Anton LaVey. It's very intriguing. But I find it really interesting to see how there's this like underground kind of connection between these various groups. Like you can find Kenneth Anger working with Alfred Kinsey, hanging out in Aleister Crowley's sex dungeon. Okay, let me see what else we have here. Going through your comments. I know we got distracted because that incel guy came in here. Why are we talking about incels? Well, because it's a world stage psyop, and they have used them as essentially a terrorist. They invent these terrorists all the time. These are various. It's always evolving, but the domestic terrorists went from um, being like racist or Nazis or anti-immigrant to now you're having like this anti-female thing with incels, and they mix them all up. Citizen Vigilante was super focused on, I think, immigrants, if you recall. I haven't followed up on that one, but that was an interesting breakdown because, of course, Citizen Vigilante is this movie that was pandering to the woke right, and the character has a lot of fascinating connections to Patrick Bateman and Batman, which are kind of like a mainstay of woke right memeage, and it reinforces a lot of their things. Like Patrick Bateman was obsessed with Donald Trump, weirdly enough. The dungeon where Kinsey was hanging out with Kenneth Anger was the Abbey of Thelema, and I don't know if it was in. I gotta get the location. You can find the picture, but the significance is, of course, Alfred Kinsey, some kind of deranged psychopath, but pretty much one of the big names in like the sexual revolution, and all of his data was misrepresented and very, very sick. But he's hanging out with this other group who it just seems like, okay, what is going on here? There's this fusion of Hollywood, Satanism, the sexual revolution that all seems to kind of con- um, be concentrated around that area. And then it brings in these other people, like I said, like, even like Mick Jagger and other types who are in this circle. All right, let's see what we have here. I had a few things earmarked to talk about. I do believe that the person we were speaking with, the incel, I think the guy was, I think he's a Fed, and it's not to be, disparaging, but I don't think that's a coincidence that we have these psyops happening, and then somebody who supports the shooter just shows up in our chat like it's normal. Like, do you remember when we had a bunch of people from Goyim TV in our chat one day? I was like, why is this guy suddenly in our chat? What's up, Waco Soto? Thank you for joining. All right, so we got about 60 people in chat. We've kind of been all over the place. I blame Lily Bell for being tipsy and the homeless guy with the black pills. I'm not even entertaining the black pill philosophy as anything other than essentially a resentment building strategy. It's nihilistic. Okay, so go to ips.monster, subscribe so you don't miss the live stream notifications. We'll probably be more focused tomorrow. I spent the better part of the day setting up the 24-hour live stream because we used to have this 24-hour chat all the time, and it would feed into the Discord server. And I would just do replays of interviews, a cycle in music, and recent replays. So I set that up last night, and I may start that again. It was a little glitchy today, but we'll see. It'll be on a backup channel. So the 24-hour stream is a way to keep a constant presence on all the video platforms when multi-streaming. But overall, it was one of our growth strategies, and we are trying to expand Realville into a greater part of Trutherville. And that, of course, is a matter of mostly the chat more than anything. But Discord is where you go if you want all of the cutting edge research. And lately, this great deconstruction project has been unveiling quite a few irrefutable connections that add a lot of depth and detail to the work we've already done. So this is beyond coincidence. And those people who are still hiding behind the word coincidence, like it's some kind of magic word to shield off the truth, like there's really not much to stand on other than playing dumb. And playing dumb as a strategy to avoid the conversation may work right now, but as our numbers increase, as the number of media skeptics increase, it's going to be pretty obvious that that's simply a rhetorical technique to avoid looking at facts, which is what is required of you if you are a skeptic. And I'm very skeptical about the skepticism of a lot of self-proclaimed skeptics that I've been seeing around lately. All right, we will see you all in Discord, hopefully. This is the live from Realville, the Ips Deprogram. Will likely be live at the same time tomorrow.